Chapter 1827. However, her eyes were still filled with determination. She had witnessed Bei Wang Chen's true strength. The 9 xiangs in front of him weren't even the entirety of Bei Wang Chen. To be exact, they weren't even 1/10 of Bei Wang Chen. The eldest prince was behind by an entire emperor level of destiny. He could not help but feel his heartstrings tighten. He no longer believed that Su Yu had said that he had not killed a single emperor-level ancient beast on his way here. After all, with that terrifying giant bow, which ancient beast wouldn't die if they encountered it. In other words, apart from the 7 emperor-level ancient beasts and the 1 giant corpse-eating centipede. Su Yu didn't know whether he had more. He had to widen the gap between them. Otherwise, he might really lose the position of crown prince, which was so close to him. Kill that evil crow. The first prince fixed his gaze on the only ancient beast with double crowns. If Su Yu could obtain his nation's destiny, he wouldn't stand a chance even if he killed all the ancient beasts in the ruins. The ancient formation spun and unleashed a terrifying attack that could kill an Emperor Realm cultivator. In the face of the majestic fusion attack, the evil crows were negligible, as if they would be drowned in the next moment. But even when the attack was within 1,000 feet of it, there wasn't a single ripple in its deathly still eyes. With just a flap of its right wing, a gust of pitch-black wind swept out and actually swept back their combined attack. Bang! Caught off guard, the ancient formation suffered a fierce attack and collapsed on the spot. The 4 people above flew back in panic, avoiding the dangerous pitch-black gale. With a single strike, the combined attack of the 4 of them was broken. The first prince's eyes were filled with shock. Su Yu's eyes flashed. He was indeed worthy of being the double-crowned divine warrior. Even if he was not as good as the double-crowned heavens and earthly divine warriors in the outside world, he was not someone they could shake. At the very least, based on the strength they had displayed, it was exceptionally difficult. The crown prince gripped his golden sword tightly and cursed in his heart. Was this the end? The youth in the bloody mist chuckled, as expected of a dual-crown emperor-level ancient beast. Its strength is ridiculously powerful. Fortunately, it guards the ruins and disdains coming out to kill us. Otherwise, it would be difficult for us to even escape. The man in the bamboo hat remained silent and nodded. With the strength they displayed, wanting to shake the dual-crown emperor was like an ant trying to shake a tree. The 5 people present could be said to be the 5 strongest people who participated in the relic. If they couldn't do anything about it, there was basically no possibility of killing the evil crow. But the eldest prince didn't give up. He looked at the blood-shrouded youth with deep fear, and then turned to Jiu Xiang. "Brother Chen, this is the only way." The 9 divine princes looked at the first prince and asked in unison, "Can you control what happens next?" The eldest prince nodded. "Take down this evil crow, and the situation will be settled. I still have Brother Jean, who you brought, and 200 elites. It won't be a problem to stabilize the situation," he said confidently. After pondering for a moment, Jiu Xiang slowly nodded and said, "Okay, I will do my best to help you take down Xieya, but the rest is up to you." The crown prince bowed and said, "Thank you, Brother Qin. If you succeed, I will make you the heavenly imperial guardian." "Haha, since I've already chosen you, I will naturally do my best," Jiu Xiang said indifferently. They glanced sideways at Su Yu, undisguised murderous intent in their eyes. "Actually, if you killed the 6th prince, you would still be able to secure victory. Unfortunately, the Empire's rules are strict, and we cannot attack the princes. The greatest threat in the entire relic was the 6th prince. If he was killed, no one would be able to threaten the 1st prince. Moreover, if he obtained the 6th prince's destiny, who could compete with him? If he dared to kill the 6th prince now, the gray-robed emperor, the monarch, and the entire empire would not let him off once he returned to the outside world. Regret was written all over his face. The 1st prince snorted and said, "Once we capture the evil crow, his good days will come to an end." Then we can only use a slightly more troublesome method. Jiu Xiang said indifferently. The 9 Supremes took a deep breath at the same time and formed strange seals with both hands. They were mysterious and difficult to understand, appearing very profound. Beams of powerful aura circled around the 9 divine princes. Their figures gradually became blurry and transparent. Before long, the 9 Supremes all disappeared, leaving only the gradually merging aura and the distant chanting of incantations. What is this? Su Yu's brows twitched for no reason. Empress Ziwei trembled with excitement, her eyes filled with admiration. She could not help but exclaim, "He has appeared. Bei Wangqin's true body is about to descend." True body. Su Yu had long heard that Bei Wangqin cultivated the extraordinary technique of heaven and earth, the 9 divine princes technique. He cultivated his avarice, anger, stupidity, and other personalities into clones and trained them independently. Once the clones reached their limits and merged into one, they would explode with terrifying strength. This kind of cultivation method was basically lost, and no one would cultivate it. Because if one of the clones failed to cultivate it to perfection, the entire cultivation process would be affected, and there would be no way out. But Bei Wangqin not only dared to do it, but he also succeeded. He cultivated all 9 divine princes to the peak of half-martial emperor. The reason why he did not merge the 9 divine princes into one was that he wanted to see the ruins of the Great Yu and help the first prince seize the position of the crown prince. The restrictions of the ruins of the Great Yu were that only those below the martial emperor level were allowed to enter, with exception of the princes. He was the first prince's true trump card. He alone was comparable to 1,000 people. 9 divine princes into one. The blurry chanting stopped abruptly and was replaced by a thunderous heavenly voice. The entire ruins began to tremble, as if a powerful being that could not be contained was forcefully squeezing into the ruins. Somewhere, an evil red-clothed man was sitting on a mountain peak and drinking dragon blood from a gourd. Suddenly, he looked into the depths of the ruins and grinned evilly. Interesting. Besides me, there is another double-crown martial emperor. Many people who were hunting ancient beasts in various places of the ruins were attracted by the abnormal trembling. Princess Ru Qin was killing an ancient beast that was a mystic crystal overlord. She suddenly looked into the distance. Such a powerful phenomenon. It is affecting the entire ruins. She hesitated for a moment, then gritted her teeth. He is preparing a kingdom for me. How can I be a coward? Let's go and check it out. In various places, the 2nd prince, the 3rd prince, the 4th prince, and the 5th prince all sensed the phenomenon from the depths of the ruins. After thinking for a long time, they decided to rush over and check it out. In the ruins of the palace by the lake, the booming voice of 9 divine princes into one sounded like rolling thunder in everyone's ears. At the peak of the sky, an enormous whirlpool was spinning. The divine energy of the entire ruins was stirred up and crazily gathered at this place. Imperceptibly, the aura of a half-step martial emperor soared crazily. In the blink of an eye, the aura of a martial emperor reached the level of a primordial desolation. However, the rise of the aura didn't stop, or it was just the beginning. 1 crown martial emperor in the early stage. 1 crown martial emperor in the middle stage. 1 crown martial emperor in the late stage. 1 crown martial emperor in the peak stage. The aura kept rising and reached the peak stage of the crown martial emperor in one breath, surpassing the first prince. Moreover, it didn't stop until an oppressive aura descended into the world. The aura of a double crown martial emperor. Even the deathly eyes of the evil crow finally showed signs of movement. It quickly spread its retracted wings and let out strange caws, as if it was facing a great enemy. The man in the bamboo hat and the youth in the bloody mist stared at the figure that was gradually forming in the whirlpool. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. The first prince's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He was jealous and envious, but most of all he was ashamed of his inferiority. People often listed him and Bei Wangqin as the strongest geniuses of the Dayu Empire. However, only a few people knew that, as an emperor of heaven and earth, he wasn't qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as Bei Wangqin. They were geniuses from two different worlds. One was the world on the ground, and the other was the world in the sky. This is Bei Wangqin's true power. In front of him, the so-called geniuses are just a joke. Empress Siwei looked at Su Yu with pity. That's why I said you are a frog at the bottom of a well. You know nothing about geniuses. Su Yu's eyes were filled with surprise. It was no wonder that Bei Wangqin shocked the civilization and resounded throughout the time and space of the current era. He had reached the level of the double-crown martial emperor before the age of 30. It was no exaggeration to look up to him. When the whirlpool stopped, the aura finally stopped at the early stage of the double-crown martial emperor. An elegant youth in a white robe with 9 blood-red marks between his brows descended gracefully. Every step he took and every expression was full of special meaning. He stared at the evil crow and took a step forward with his hands clasped behind his back. The evil crow soared into the sky and flapped its wings. 2 ferocious tornadoes swept over. Bei Wangqin didn't even look at it. He said indifferently, "Accept your fate." No matter how the tornadoes hit him, they couldn't move him at all. Instead, he waved his hand casually. Not only did he disperse the pitch-black tornadoes, but he also sent the evil crow flying. Pitch-black feathers fell from the sky. The evil crow looked terrified. They were both double-crown martial emperors, but their powers weren't on the same level. Caw! The evil crow shrieked and let out a headache-splitting shriek. The people below hurriedly protected their bodies with their divine powers and retreated quickly. The shriek reached the depths of their souls and had a destructive power that could destroy their souls. Apart from the first prince, Su Yu was the only one who didn't move. If the people below were in such a state, it wasn't hard to imagine what kind of powerful soul attack Bei Wangqin was facing. However, he still didn't move, and his expression didn't change at all. I said, "Accept your fate." Bei Wangqin ignored the soul attack and stepped forward to slap it. Sizzle! 9 chains attacked at the same time and wrapped around the evil crow. Hiss! 9 chains of law. The second prince, who happened to be nearby, drew a cold breath when he saw this scene. 9 chains of law. The martial emperors were undefeatable with 1 chain of law. With 9 chains of law, who could rival them at the same level? As expected, the evil crow's body instantly turned dull after being bombarded by the 9 rules. It lost 70 to 80% of its life force in an instant. Bei Wangqin had beaten the evil crow half to death with a casual strike. Even if the gray-robed martial emperor were to fight Bei Wangqin, he would most likely lose. He was ridiculously powerful. The last strike. Bei Wangqin calmly slapped at the evil crow. The evil crow's face was filled with despair. There was no chance of survival. Empress Siwei was so emotional that tears streamed down her face. "Lord Qin, I will follow you forever and never leave you." She turned to look at Su Yu, wanting to know his current expression. But what startled her was that there was only an afterimage where he had been standing. Sizzle! At the same time, a change occurred in the sky above the battle. A sharp sound, like a sharp object cutting through paper, reverberated through the sky without warning. The indifferent Bei Wangqin's expression changed drastically. He retracted his palm and retreated quickly. His eyes widened as he stared at the broken corner of the chain of law. He lost his voice in shock. The rules were damaged? Who? Chapter 1828. Please enter the text. Su Yu. Glaring at Su Yu coldly, Bei Wangqin continued to look around and yelled, "Who attacked? Don't be sneaky anymore." He didn't believe it was Su Yu who attacked. Damage to laws was something that could only happen in a battle of laws between sovereign realm cultivators. Apart from that, only those Tao artifacts that only existed in legends could easily damage them. He didn't believe a small overlord could master a mythical Tao artifact. The only explanation was that there was a powerful expert hiding nearby that he hadn't noticed. The first prince, the young man in the bloody mist, and the bamboo hat man all had different expressions. The first prince also didn't believe Suyu. No one knew better than him that the rules were so strong that no divine technique or treasure could damage them. It was an existence that originated from heaven and earth. It was a kind of Tao that existed between illusion and reality. Who could damage the Tao that originated from heaven and earth? Apart from the chain of rules that originated from Tao, only the Tao artifacts created by the Path Masters could do so. He had a bad feeling. Could there be another powerful expert hiding in this fight for the fate of the nation? Could the other party be like Bei Wangqin, avoiding the detection of the ruins and sneaking in quietly? The bloody mist on the surface of the young man in the bloody mist surged. He stared at Suyu with a pair of dim yellow eyes and grinned. Is it really you? I don't believe you're stronger than me after so many years. The bamboo hat man couldn't help but clench his fists. He chuckled softly. His laughter was filled with nostalgia, fighting intent, and even a little regret. I thought I had left you far behind, and the gap between us was like heaven and earth. I didn't expect Suyu to be Suyu after all. Even the wicked girl couldn't destroy you. Is a battle inevitable between you and me? From the Jojo continent to the myriad of galaxies, and then to the ancient god realm. They had always been the top heaven rulers in their respective regions, and they could be called kings. The strange thing was, perhaps it was fate, but they had never fought before. At last he stared at Suyu and sighed. Suyu, let me see how strong you are now. A strong wind was blowing in the sky. A bird and two people stood in the sky. Bei Wangqin didn't care about Suyu at all. Even though Suyu was right in front of him, he didn't care about him at all. When Suyu appeared and heard him looking for someone, he merely chuckled. Zhang Xian turned around and glared at Xieya. Without saying a word, he flicked his wrist, and a bracelet appeared on his wrist. Threads invisible to the naked eye shot out from it. As a dual-crown monarch, Xieya naturally noticed the existence of the threads. Fear flowed in his eyes, and he spread his wings and fled, not even thinking of fighting back. Su Yu's expression was calm. As he clenched his fist, the silk threads that were flying around changed in an instant. They intertwined to form a giant net, which enveloped the evil crow in the air. Chi, the evil crow, was horrified. It kept flapping its wings in fear, releasing an incomparably powerful, pitch-black hurricane. However, under the giant net, they were all cut into pieces. The evil crow's body was cut into 6 pieces. This scene caused the first prince to be extremely astonished. The sudden change also caused the blood mist youth's expression to change drastically. He shouted angrily in a low voice, "Impossible! How could he have become so strong?" His expression suddenly changed, and the blood mist on the surface of his body became even thicker, concealing his appearance even deeper. The savage, ferocious energy that he had released wantonly was withdrawn like a tide. His arrogance was completely restrained, for fear of being noticed by Suyu. The plaited bamboo hat man laughed, his fighting spirit bursting forth. As expected, my opponent is only you. Bei Wangqin, who was looking for the enemy, was shocked. He had destroyed the body of the dual-crown monarch with one move. It's you. Bei Wangqin's heart was in turmoil. The one who had damaged his nomological chains just now was actually this insignificant kid in front of him. Su Yu did not pay any attention to them. He took the opportunity to smash the evil crow's broken body to prevent future trouble. You are not qualified to touch my things. Bei Wangqin bellowed as if he was facing a great enemy. The 9 law chains came at Suyu. Suyu creased his brows. He had no choice but to withdraw the silk threads to form a giant net to block the attack. However, the giant net sank, and the 9 law chains could not penetrate the law. Immediately after, Suyu twisted his wrist, and the giant net twisted and turned, breaking the 9 law chains. Crack! One of the chains was unusually fragile, and it was cut off immediately. The damage to the law affected his body. Bei Wangqin roared in pain. My proud phase chain! He hurriedly withdrew the 9 chains, his eyes filled with hatred and resentment. If I had known this would happen, I would have come out of seclusion at all costs and gone to the sea of constellations to kill you personally. Among the 9 xiangs, only the proud phase was not complete. The reason was that it had been defeated by Suyu twice, which became a regret of the proud phase. The law that it had condensed was much weaker because of this. This was also why it could be broken easily. Don't flatter yourself. You said it as if you were at the peak of the 9 xiangs. You should be glad that you did not come back then. Otherwise, I would have killed every one of the 9 xiangs. If 9 came, I would have killed all 9 of them. At that time, Bei Wangqin's 9 xiangs had not reached the peak, and he could not combine them into one. For Suyu, it was only a matter of time before he killed 9 half-martial emperors. However, from Bei Wangqin's tone, it was as if he had let Suyu escape because of his carelessness. Then let me show you the power of a double-crowned divine warrior. Bei Wangqin weaved signs to cast a powerful divine technique. At that moment, the 6 parts of Xieya's body, which had been cut into pieces, fused back into one. Moreover, a frightening black wind surrounded his body, causing him to turn into a beam of light as he continued to fly forward. The double-crowned divine warrior did not die so easily. Even if his body was destroyed, he could recover in an instant. Not good. Xiaoyu is trying to escape. The first prince's expression changed abruptly as he reminded Bei Wangqin. However, Bei Wangqin turned a deaf ear to him. He only had eyes for Suyu. People like him, who were more arrogant than the sky, either considered everyone beneath them or only had eyes for one person. Suyu did not hesitate. He turned around and grasped. The giant net made of silk was about to envelop Xiaoyu once again. However, at that moment, Bei Wangqin suddenly attacked. Vajra 9 angry palm. He no longer cast the law chain. Instead, he cast a divine technique to crush Bei Wangqin with his extremely high cultivation level. The Vajra 9 angry palm was a divine technique that complemented the 9 xiangs' divine technique. It was extremely powerful. When cultivated to the extreme, a strike from a half-martial emperor was comparable to a martial emperor. When cast by the double-crowned divine warrior, its power was even more earth-shattering. As the palm struck, even the heavens and the earth dimmed. The whole world seemed to cave in. A sense of fear and trepidation welled up in the hearts of the crowd, forcing them to speed up their retreat from the battlefield. If the double-crowned divine warrior was in front of this palm, the palm's wind alone would be enough to kill him. The first prince's eyes trembled. He swallowed hard. That is Bei Wangqin's true power. Empress Ziwei's eyes were filled with admiration. The determination in her eyes deepened. The person I follow must be the number 1 in the world. No one can compare to him. With a palm strike, who could compete with him? The tiny figure of the overlord was like an ant in the world. In the face of such a shocking power, it could only be destroyed. However, Suyu's expression remained calm from beginning to end. It was so calm that it bordered on contempt. He stared at the incoming palm strike calmly. It was only when it was 1,000 feet away from his body that he finally lifted a finger and pointed at the immensely powerful palm strike from afar. A strand of strange power pulsed from his fingertip, condensing into an inconspicuous small blade. With a flick of his fingertip, the small blade flew out. Compared to the majestic and peerless palm strike, the small blade was negligible. Bei Wangqin's eyes were filled with disdain. An ant trying to shake a tree. You overestimate yourself. He pushed with his palm, and the heaven-destroying palm strike descended at a faster speed. However, an unbelievable scene appeared before everyone's eyes. The small blade rotated gently, and the oncoming palm strike was completely devoured by the sharp blade. Not even a trace of palm energy was left. The earth-shattering palm strike was gone, and only the inconspicuous small blade was left spinning quietly. The first prince and Empress Ziwei were stunned. They did not understand what had happened. Only Bei Wangqin, who was close at hand, had a stiff expression. He stared at the small blade with a hint of vigilance in his eyes. He said in a stern voice, "Space divine technique." To be precise, it was the space blade. This was Su Yu's latest understanding of space. It used the unique devouring ability of space to devour everything, be it people or divine techniques. It was similar to the devouring ability of the Tao Tai's eyes. The difference was that after being devoured by the Tao Tai's eyes, one could still survive in the Tao Tai's stomach. After being devoured by the space blade, one would be drawn into the world of nothingness and perish. Bei Wangqin's expression finally changed. An inexplicable sense of threat arose in his heart. He had never thought that anyone in the Diyu Empire was stronger than him. However, the young man in front of him gave him a sense of threat that he had never felt before. A mere overlord, Ant should be proud of himself for being able to block a blow from me. However, that is all. What you have seen is just the tip of the iceberg of the Double Crown Emperor. The aura around him swirled abruptly. He took a deep breath and bellowed, "Angry Vajrapam, proud Vajrapam, sad Vajrapam." The 9 Vajrapam was a complementary cultivation technique of the 9 Vajra divine technique. Each Vajra cultivates a single palm. The proud Vajra cultivates the proud Vajrapam, while the slave Vajra cultivates the angry Vajrapam. The attack just now was just one of the palms. 9. Palm. Return. 1. 9 palm prints flew out simultaneously, forming a 9-petal lotus. It was filled with the ultimate strength of Bei Wangqin's 9 personalities. The combination of the 9 ultimate strengths was terrifying, comparable to a middle-stage Double Crown Emperor. Even if the gray-robed Emperor was present, he would not dare to resist it recklessly. I didn't expect that the first person I, Bei Wangqin, defeated by the 9 incarnations united as one, was just a mere overlord. What a disgrace to the 9 incarnations' divine technique. Bei Wangqin closed his eyes slowly. His eyes were filled with regret. Su Yu, you are strong enough to laugh at the world. The 9 petals pressed down from the sky, leaving Su Yu with nowhere to run or hide. The first prince shook his head and said indifferently, "Although the 6th prince is strong, how can he be compared to Bei Wangqin? Bei Wangqin is a god, an unsurpassable god." Ziwei's eyes were filled with pity. It's a pity that you are the frog at the bottom of the well. From their point of view, there was no suspense in the outcome. A power 9 times stronger than before was not something a small space blade could devour. Su Yu, who was in a desperate situation, did not panic as the crowd had expected. Chapter 1829. Please enter the main text. He pointed at Bei Wangqin from afar. A wisp of space radiance condensed in his palm and flew out. Bei Wangqin said disdainfully, "As I said, a mere space blade can't do anything to me." His words came to an abrupt end, and he couldn't continue. Because inside Su Yu's body, numerous space blades were shooting out like bamboo shoots after the rain. There were hundreds of them. Creak! The sharp blades flew in unison, like peerless, ferocious creatures awakening in the universe, crazily devouring everything in their path. Not even a trace of the 9-petal palm print was left. It was completely devoured by the sharp blades that blotted out the sky and the earth. No, Bei Wangqin let out a desperate roar. However, the space blades cut through his body mercilessly. Puff! Around his body, there was only a cloud of blood mist drifting. The number 1 heaven ruler of the Diyu Empire was killed in the blink of an eye. However, at this moment, the cloud of blood mist emitted a shocking life force, and a figure flew out from it. It was Bei Wangqin. However, compared to a moment ago, his aura had obviously dropped by 1/9. The crowd heaved a sigh of relief. A Double Crown Emperor wouldn't die so easily. Ziwei's incredulous eyes regained their luster. She said excitedly, "He won't be defeated so easily. No one in this world can rival him. He will fight again." Unexpectedly, Bei Wangchen turned into a sharp arrow and shot toward the top of the sky above the ruins. With a casual grab, he crushed the clouds in the sky, revealing the essence of the sky above the ruins, a seal. Without any hesitation, Bei Wangchen slammed his palm on the seal. The seal was triggered, and it sensed the presence of a double-crown emperor that exceeded the limit. A fluorescent light descended and enveloped Bei Wangchen, transporting him out quickly. He was escaping. Su Yu looked at him indifferently, his eyes full of disdain. The #1 heaven ruler of the Diu Empire is just SOO. With a casual wave of his hand, another large number of space blades appeared. However, the next moment, they disappeared into thin air. When they reappeared, they were inside Bei Wangchen's body. Ah! With a miserable scream, Bei Wangchen was once again killed into a cloud of blood mist. However, a moment later, another Bei Wangchen appeared in the blood mist. His aura dropped by 1/9 again. After 2 drops, he had fallen from a double-crown emperor to the peak of a single-crown emperor. In the end, Su Yu waved another space blade. Bei Wangchen took the opportunity to teleport out. However, during the teleportation process, it was crushed into pieces for the 3rd time. Faintly, Bei Wangchen's furious roar could be heard. "Su Yu, you and I are absolutely irreconcilable." A trace of coldness flashed across Su Yu's mouth. "You will need to have the opportunity first." Teleportation. He clasped his hands behind his back. He didn't seem to make any movements, but the blood fog that had been teleported away by the restriction was actually teleported back. When a figure whose aura had fallen to the late stage of the sovereign realm walked out of the blood mist, he was greeted with another round of strangulation. "Ah, I won't let you off." Bei Wangchen could only let out a scream before he was annihilated again. The eyes of the crowd below were filled with shock. The dignified double-crown martial emperor, a heaven ruler of the Diu Empire, was no match for Su Yu, a space expert. He did not even have the right to escape. For the 4th time, Bei Wangchen appeared. He no longer had any intention to continue fighting. Panic finally appeared on his face as he shouted, "Stop, there's no dead end between us." Ah! What answered him was being strangled again. For the 5th time, Bei Wangchen's face was full of panic. He begged for mercy. "Your Royal Highness, please have mercy on me. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai." However, the space blade strangled him mercilessly. For the 6th time, without hesitation, Bei Wangchen turned into a sharp arrow and fled toward the first prince. He screamed in terror, "Save me!" The first prince seemed to have woken up from a dream. He said hurriedly, "Quick! Stop him now." All of this was a complete dream, a nightmare for him. The youth in the blood mist hesitated for a moment before nodding reluctantly. "I don't believe he is so strong." The man in the bamboo hat also hesitated for a moment before he chuckled softly. "Haha, don't overdo it. Let me try his space divine technique." The first prince took the lead, brandishing his huge golden sword with great vigor. When Su Yu was about to annihilate Bei Wangchen for the 6th time, the 3 of them charged toward him together. Surprisingly, the youth in the blood mist and the man in the bamboo hat displayed the strength of the sovereign realm, which was no weaker than the first prince. Although their realms had not reached the sovereign realm, their cultivation techniques or special constitutions allowed them to explode with strength far beyond their realms. Even the first prince was shocked. The strength of the 2 men was above his. Their attack had saved Bei Wangchen from that attack. Bei Wangchen still had a lingering fear. His eyes were filled with horror. He said in a trembling voice, "How could he be so strong?" The first prince's heart was heavy. Perhaps this is the reason why the gray-robed sovereign realm expert took a liking to him. to master one of the 8 great laws. Although they had heard how earth-shattering it was to master one of the 8 great laws, they had their own pride in their hearts. But in their hearts, they had their own pride, and they refused to accept it. It was not until they encountered it personally that they realized how terrifying the 8 great laws were. An overlord who had just condensed the law without the sovereign realm could crush the double crown, sovereign realm expert. 4 against 1. Su Yu smiled with his hands clasped behind his back. He was facing the 4 of them alone. His expression was relaxed, but the 4 of them looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Come at me together while you still have the chance to attack. If it was in the past, his words would only be met with mockery. But at this moment, no one could laugh. The 4 of them looked at each other and attacked one after another. Among them, Bei Wangchen's abilities were the strongest. The plated bamboo hat man and the blood-shrouded youth were on par. The first prince was the weakest. The 4 of them represented the strongest existences of the younger generation of the Diyu Empire. With their combined strength, they could defeat all the strong enemies of the same cultivation level. But Su Yu, who was opposite them, laughed casually. The space energy in his body rose rapidly. In an instant, a boundless and terrifying space energy rose to its limit. Destroy! Rumble! The compressed space energy suddenly turned into countless sharp blades, shooting out from his body and piercing through the surroundings. Moreover, the sharp blades disappeared in the air. When they reappeared, they were all inside their bodies. The expressions of the 4 of them changed drastically. They did not dare to stay any longer, retreating hurriedly. Wherever they stood, the space blades quietly swallowed and spat out pieces of space blades. The other 3 were fine, but the first prince retreated a little too slowly. One of his legs was devoured, and blood splattered wildly. But before the 3 of them were ready to fight again, they heard Su Yu say softly, "Explode!" The sharp blades of space exploded for the second time, turning into countless tiny sharp blades of space that shot out abruptly. Dodge! The 4 of them retreated hurriedly, looking shocked and bewildered. Second explosion! But it did not stop. The countless tiny sharp blades exploded for the second time, shooting out tiny needle-like sharp blades of space. No matter how cautious they were, how could they defend themselves against a second explosion? All of a sudden, all 4 of them were hit. Their bodies were pierced by the tiny sharp blades of space, riddling them with holes. Third explosion! The needle-like sharp blades of space exploded again, turning into hair-thin, sharp blades of space. At this point, the faces of the 4 of them were extremely gloomy. Without any hesitation, they retreated thousands of miles away, staring at Su Yu with different expressions. The first prince's face was full of despair, and Bei Wangchen had lost all will to fight. The youth in the bloody mist hesitated for a moment, then turned around and fled. The man in the bamboo hat smiled bitterly. "Forget it. Before I get that sword, I am no match for him." When he finished speaking, he also turned around and fled. In the blink of an eye, only the first prince and Bei Wangchen were left. Seeing the 2 of them retreating, Bei Wangchen did not hesitate. He cupped his hands at the first prince and said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you. First prince, please don't look for me again. As long as the 6th prince of the Diyu Empire exists, I, Bei Wangchen, will never set foot in this place again." The first prince was in complete despair. "Wait," Su Yu said calmly. Bei Wangchen felt his blood run cold. When he turned around, his eyes were filled with deep fear. After pondering for a moment, he bowed and said, "Bei Wangchen admits defeat. 6th Prince, please be merciful and spare my life." Even the space transfer of the Diyu relic could not help him escape, let alone escape by flying. "Don't you want to seek revenge?" Su Yu stared at him. Bei Wangchen lowered his head even more. "If you are slightly stronger than me, I, Bei Wangchen, will will not accept it and will definitely seek revenge. However, if you are too much stronger than me, there will only be respect, no hatred. This was the norm in the martial arts world. A difference of 1 grade would make people jealous and unwilling. However, if it was a difference of 10 levels, then it would cause others to be fearful and not dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect. As for hatred, unless it was a blood feud, people would swallow it. Su Yu had killed several of Bei Wangchen's incarnations with a single sword strike, forcefully turning him from a double-crown emperor to a single-crown emperor. It would take at least 100 years for him to return to his peak. His hatred was neither too great nor too small. However, in the face of the absolute gap in strength, he could only choose to forget about it. Seeing the sincere admiration in his eyes, Su Yu's murderous intent faded gradually. "You can leave, but bring her along." Su Yu glanced at Empress Ziwei. Bei Wangchen glanced sideways and thought for a moment before remembering her name. "I remember her name is Ziwei, right? Why should I bring her along? She is your staunchest follower and most loyal believer," Su Yu said with his hands clasped behind his back. Bei Wangchen shook his head, unable to hide the disdain in his eyes. "She is but a frog at the bottom of a well who has lost her sense of self. She can only see me, but cannot see the real sky. Such a person will only rely on the strong, and her achievements in this life will be limited. Since the 6th prince has captured her, she will belong to the 6th prince from now on. Bei Wangchen will take his leave now." He left indifferently without even looking at Empress Ziwei. Empress Ziwei stood blankly on the spot. Her eyes were hollow as if she had lost her soul. When Bei Wangchen was defeated again and again, she still had a glimmer of hope that Bei Wangchen would make a comeback one day. However, his last words pushed her into a bottomless pit of ice, and her heart and soul became icy cold. His words were almost exactly the same as what Su Yu had said. She was, after all, a frog at the bottom of a well who had lost her sense of self. Su Yu glanced at her indifferently before withdrawing his gaze expressionlessly. He looked toward the sky and said, "Seeing the well as the sky has its limits. Seeing oneself as a genius is the correct path of martial arts." The absent-minded Empress Ziwei trembled as if she had been struck by lightning. Chapter 1830. Please enter the text, then grab the sword, turn around and leave. Thank you, I'm sorry. Before leaving, she looked back at the godlike heaven-prideful king, the man who once stood on the same starting line as her. Thank you. Thank him for saving her life, and thank him for enlightening her. Sorry for her betrayal in the past. She got up and looked in the direction of the sea of constellations. Perhaps only by returning to the place where she started could she start anew. The youth in the bloody mist fled to the middle of the ruins before stopping. He clenched his fists tightly, and the blood mist on the surface of his body tumbled, revealing his true appearance. If Su Yu were here, he would certainly recognize him. He was a formidable enemy who had been haunting him since the Zhenlong continent. Gu Taishu, I have the body of the 9 gods, but I still can't defeat him. Gu Taishu's face was gloomy. He used to think that he had far surpassed the past, surpassed Su Yu. Su Yu was like dust in front of him, no longer worthy of being his enemy. He could crush Su Yu as easily as crushing an ant. As early as the day the 6th prince returned to the royal family and announced it to the world, he was shocked to find that the lifelong enemy who had stolen his woman and all his glory had also come to the Diu Empire and disguised himself as the 6th prince. At that moment, he was shocked and ecstatic. He had thought that the other party was in the Tao Tai cage, and he would never be able to take revenge. But who would have thought that the other party had come to the Diu Empire? Therefore, he disguised himself and joined the 3rd prince's team. His purpose was to stand in front of Su Yu as Gu Taishu and give him a huge surprise. Unexpectedly, just as he was about to reveal his identity and prepare to take revenge on Su Yu had exploded with terrifying strength, giving him a huge surprise. With the strength of a single person, he had crushed the Double Crown Emperor. The strongest heaven rulers of the 4 empires were no match for him, even if they joined forces. He couldn't help but feel sad. Was he incompetent? Or was Suyu too nature-defying? Obviously, he was also a top-notch heaven ruler, and obviously he also had great luck and fortune. But why? Why was the other party always above him? In the midst of his rage, a young girl's voice, like silver bells, came into view. Little ducks, swim, swim, swim to the stone shore, one left, one right, quack, quack, quack. Gu Taishu separated the plants and swept his gaze forward. He couldn't help but be slightly stunned. A 16-year-old girl dressed in colorful clothes was holding a bottle of precious spirit milk in her left hand and a ball of freshly roasted emperor-grade ancient beast meat in her right hand. A mouthful of spirit milk and a mouthful of meat. He hummed an indistinct nursery rhyme. "Where did you get it?" Gu Taishu was a little surprised. He could not see through the girl's cultivation at all. To be precise, there were no waves of divine power coming from her. Yet the other party was able to eat emperor-level ancient beasts. This was truly bizarre. After pondering for a while, Gu Taishu felt relieved. So what if it was strange? Could it be that he was an emperor? The rules of the Yu, the great ruins, forbade emperors from entering. As long as she was below the emperor level, Gu Taishu could crush her as easily as crushing an ant. An ominous glint flashed in his eyes. "Humph, consider yourself unlucky to have met me." His chest was full of anger, but he had nowhere to vent it. He stomped on a large patch of grass and trees in front of him and appeared fiercely. He snorted coldly, "You're eating happily." The girl in colorful clothes turned her head and muttered, "I hate people who disturb my meals the most." But then the girl in colorful clothes let out a soft cry of surprise. She stared at the blood mist on the young man's body in disbelief. She seemed to have discovered something, and then her eyes flashed brightly. She dropped the piece of emperor-level ancient beast meat in her hand and stood up abruptly. She asked in a charming voice, "Big brother, what's your name?" Gu Taishu was slightly stunned. Not only did he not frighten her with his ferocious look, but she was also not afraid of him at all. This was interesting. Gu Taishu's murderous intent weakened considerably. "Gu Taishu, what about you?" "My name is Xiao Dai," the girl in colorful clothes said. She stared at him and said in a crisp voice, "Brother Taishu, I'm hungry. Can I borrow some food from you?" "Xiao Dai, what an ordinary name. What do you want? Tell me." Gu Taishu did not notice that Xiao Dai was drooling and her eyes were shining. Near the ruins, only Suyu and the first prince were left. The first prince stared at Suyu with indignation in his eyes. Was this the end? There was no one else in the ruins who was Suyu's match. No one could rob him of his national destiny. On the contrary, he should be worried about whether he could keep his own national destiny. There was only one rule in the ruins of the Great Yu, and that was not to kill the princes and princesses. Suyu only robbed and did not kill, so the rule could not stop him. First Prince handed over. Whatever he wanted, he got it. Suyu looked down at him with a faint smile. His heart skipped a beat, and he clutched his pocket tightly. This was his last asset, and he could not let Suyu take it away. "How about I exchange a piece of information for you not robbing me of my national destiny?" the first prince said hesitantly. "Oh, what kind of information is important enough to compete for the position of crown prince?" Suyu said with a faint smile. He did not think the first prince could move him. To others, this information may be insignificant, but it is extremely important to you. The first prince's eyes shone brightly. "It's about your tempering of the chain of rules." Suyu's eyes narrowed slightly. If it was some kind of spiritual treasure, he would not care about it. But tempering the chain of rules, it was a top priority for him. Why could Bei Wangqin control the 9 chain of rules and suppress his peers? It was because the 9 divine symbols had each comprehended a complete chain of rules. At present, Suyu had only comprehended the space law, and he was already powerful enough to crush all living beings. Imagine if he succeeded in condensing the other laws. By then, how powerful would he be when he became a martial emperor? The pursuit of the sinful lady palace would no longer be a threat to him. If you have something to say, I can agree to it. So you made a decision, quickly. The first prince's face relaxed. All right, let's make an oath. No problem. The two of them made an oath right away. The first prince was completely relieved after getting his oath. He said, "Do you know that the Dark Star civilization sent an emissary to the Diyu Empire to participate in the Path Reign?" Of course I know, Suyu thought to himself. Could it be related to the Dark Star civilization? I communicated with the emissary of the Dark Star civilization in private, and I learned that the Dark Star civilization found a cavern of the ancient Pathmaster, the first prince said slowly. Suyu looked calm. So what if it was a cavern of the ancient Pathmaster? It was not like he had never been there before. The legacy of the faceless Buddha in the Sea of Constellations was still in his hands. He had also seen the doctrine artifacts and elixir cauldrons of the Dusty Sand civilization. There were not many things left in the caverns of the Pathmasters who had passed away a long time ago, so they were not very attractive. At least, Suyu was not very interested. That's all. His eyes turned slightly cold. The first prince secretly clicked his tongue. You are not tempted by the Pathmaster's cavern? How high are your standards? Besides that, a sword was unearthed in the cavern, causing the entire Dark Star civilization to fall into chaos. All parties are fighting for the sword. The first prince frowned. These emissaries of the Dark Star civilization are here to observe the Path Reign in name, but they are actually here to seek refuge. A sword that triggered the entire civilization to fight for it? If it were a doctrine artifact, it would not have been like this. If it were not used by the Pathmaster himself, the sword would be like scrap metal in the hands of others. The elixir cauldron of the Dusty Sand civilization. The golden lady of the sinful lady palace did not even look at it. She just left it there. It was obvious that the doctrine artifact was only famous, but in reality it was useless. What sword? A true emperor-level divine weapon, the emperor-killing sword. Suyu's pupils shrank abruptly. One of the 4 pieces of the emperor's set, the emperor-killing sword. How could he forget that the divine warrior of Tianyin of the ancient god realm of 9 dragons had captured the fate of the emperor's set for Zhan Wushuang, the born emperor? Those 4 items were destined to belong to Zhan Wushuang. Among them, the emperor-killing sword was the second emperor-based saint artifact. Although the Great Beginning Realm and the ancient god realm of 9 dragons had different rankings for emperor-based saint artifacts and true emperor-level divine weapons. However, the emperor-killing sword was definitely a top true emperor-level divine weapon in the Great Beginning Realm. An entire 4-star civilization was in turmoil, which showed how precious this sword was. Is it this sword? Haha, what a coincidence. He was interested in the emperor-killing sword, but not very much. He had not fully mastered the royal dragon sword. So what was the use of another emperor-killing sword? Does this sword have anything to do with the tempering rules you mentioned? Suyu asked. The first prince's eyes were filled with greed. Because the emperor-killing sword is one of the ancient swords of the Ecliptic Palace. I believe you are familiar with the ancient swords of the palace, right? How could he be unfamiliar with it? The Dao reign of the Diyu Empire was controlled and descended by an ancient sword of the Ecliptic Palace. You mean? Suyu was tempted. The first prince said slowly, That's right. That sword can summon Dao reign. Back then, for some reason, this sword was stolen by a Pathmaster who betrayed the Ecliptic Palace, and its whereabouts have been unknown ever since. It has been 100 million years since then. If not for the accidental discovery of that Pathmaster's cavern, I'm afraid this sword would have been completely buried in the sands of time. If you can seize this sword, haha, you can imagine it. You will have endless Dao reign, and you can comprehend any great path you wish. Suyu was completely tempted. He did not know if the emperor-killing sword still had the ability to summon Dao reign. However, he would rather believe it than not. Apart from Daurain, it would be difficult to find another auxiliary divine item that could help Su Yu comprehend the 8 great laws. No matter what, he had to find out. If you intend to seize this sword, you'd better do it as soon as possible. Putting aside the increasingly intense competition in the Dark Star civilization, I think it won't be long before the news reaches the ears of the Ecliptic Palace. By then, any Pathmaster can come and retrieve the Emperor-killing sword, and everyone can only watch helplessly. Indeed, to help Princess Rukin seize the position of the Crown Prince, he had to leave immediately. He could not delay any longer. If you are willing to turn around and help me seize the position of the Crown Prince, I can use all my resources to send you over immediately. At the end of his speech, the first prince finally revealed his fox's tail. Su Yu said without hesitation, "Since I've already made a promise, there's no reason for me to go back on it." The first prince had mixed feelings. How did Princess Rukin manage to win over the 6th prince? Rumble! At that moment, a large group of people rushed over from all directions. The 2nd prince, the 3rd prince, the 4th prince, the 5th prince, and Princess Rukin were among them. Bei Wangqin had broken through the shackles, and the vision of the 9 phases unification had attracted them all. Looking at the ghastly, tragic scene, everyone was shocked. In particular, the lingering fighting aura in the air made them shudder with fear. What kind of level of fighting had taken place here? Even after such a long time, it still made them feel uneasy. "First brother, what happened here? Where's Bei Wangqin and the rest of the people who were following you?" The 5th prince was shocked that the 1st prince was alone. How could the 1st prince have the cheek to reveal the matter in front of everyone? He said vaguely, "I've just arrived. As for Bei Wangqin and the rest, they have other tasks for the time being." The rest of the people did not suspect anything, and they scanned the battlefield around them. Chapter 1831. How was the hunt? Su Yu asked. Princess Rukin raised her chin proudly. "Yes, I hunted more than 800 ancient beasts. Added together, it is equivalent to 3 imperial-level destinies. What about you?" Princess Rukin's eyes shone brightly. Su Yu swept his gaze across the princes. They looked nonchalant, but in reality they had pricked up their ears and were secretly eavesdropping. "Not many. I hunted another 2. At that moment, the prince's expressions changed. Including the giant corpse venomous centipede, there were a total of 3, adding on the ones Princess Rukin had hunted. Did that not mean that their combined national destinies were equivalent to 6 imperial-level ancient beasts? In the previous competition, Dong Fengxia had hunted the equivalent of 7 imperial-level ancient beasts, which had allowed him to outshine the other princes and princesses. Princess Rukin's eyes shone brightly when she heard this. She could not help but cover her mouth, her eyes filled with surprise. She was not far from the position of crown prince. "First brother, how many did you hunt?" The 5th prince's expression was solemn as he walked over and asked quietly. "A total of 7, the 1st prince said calmly. The 5th prince's expression changed drastically, his face filled with joy. "I knew it. First brother is invincible." The other prince's expressions changed again. 7 did not include the amount of national destinies that the 5th prince had hunted. "What about yours?" the 1st prince asked. The 5th prince was beaming. "Roughly equivalent to 3 imperial-level ancient beasts." "So few? Only equivalent to my sister? You have twice the number of people," the 5th prince said helplessly. "The opponent's purple demon armored warriors have extraordinary combat abilities. When they work together, they can unleash unimaginable power. Although we have more people, our abilities are uneven. Coupled with the lack of teamwork, that is why," but he didn't think so. "In any case, eldest imperial brother's harvest is more than that of imperial sister and 6th imperial brother combined. The number of kills I lead won't affect the overall situation." The 1st prince's expression was gloomy. Only he knew that Su Yu did not only have 3. He had hunted down 7 just now, including the giant corpse venomous centipede. That was 8. Incompetent! The first prince scolded angrily. All of you, get serious and look for the scattered imperial-level ancient beasts, especially an injured evil crow of the double crown emperor level. He had no choice but to spend the next half a month searching with all his might. Just as he was about to lead his men away, a huge bubble suddenly appeared in the blood-colored lake in front of him. An evil aura that caused people to tremble quickly spread in all directions. Su Yu's expression changed as he stared at the corner of the relic. The first prince also looked over, and a thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. Many emperor-level ancient beasts came to guard the ruins of Yu the Great. They did not retreat even if they were killed. What were they guarding? A glimmer of light flickered in his eyes. Right at this moment, the blood-colored lake underwent another huge change. The water level of the lake dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if a bottomless pit had appeared at the bottom of the lake, swallowing all the lake water. After a short while, the ruins of a dilapidated palace lying at the bottom of the lake came into view. What's that? Why is there a palace in the deepest part of the ruins? Many people whispered. The expressions of the princes and their sisters turned solemn at the same time, as if they had thought of something. Su Yu narrowed his eyes. At this moment, that huge sense of familiarity was unprecedentedly strong, reverberating in his heart. There seemed to be a voice calling him to go in. What is it? Su Yu was secretly shocked. He did not remember having any interaction with the birthplace of Yu the Great's ruins. Dragon Palace. At this moment, someone discovered a horizontal board lying at the bottom of the lake. The words Dragon Palace were left on it. Seeing this, the princes and princesses' expressions became even more solemn. Sensing their abnormality, Su Yu lowered his voice. Sister, what's so special about this palace? Princess Rooken's pretty face was tense and solemn, her tone tinged with fear. I didn't expect the rumors of the empire to be true. What rumors? Every generation of emperors of the imperial family would gather all the members of the imperial family before they passed away and tell them some of their last words. These last words have never been recorded in any history books, Princess Rooken said in a low voice. One of the oral rumors was that when the first emperor of the Dayu Empire established civilization, he suppressed an unbelievably powerful enemy. The enemy was suppressed in the deepest part of the ruins of Yu the Great. If his descendants knew of its appearance, they had to escape from the Dayu Empire. Do not sacrifice and resist in vain. Su Yu's eyebrows twitched. Even if Dongfang Xia becomes the Triple Crown Emperor? Princess Rooken nodded deeply. That's right. The rumors say that unless the descendant becomes the Quadruple Crown Emperor, everyone else must escape. Quadruple Crown Emperor? Su Yu gasped softly. What exactly was that powerful enemy that was sealed? The abilities of the first emperor of the Dayu Empire were not that powerful. He should have only been the Quadruple Crown Emperor. It was the continuous efforts of the later generations that had slowly developed to this stage. How did the Quadruple Crown Emperor suppress such a powerful enemy? Whoosh! Suddenly, a loud panting sound came from the palace of the ruins. When everyone heard it, their bodies stiffened. It felt like an ordinary person standing in front of a giant beast and hearing it breathe. A feeling of insignificance and fear filled everyone's hearts. The princes had long since clenched their fists, their palms sweaty. They had thought it was just a rumor, something that the imperial family had almost forgotten, but it actually existed. The first prince's heart trembled. His intuition told him that the thing in the ruins was extremely dangerous and terrifying. Before it, they might not even be considered ants. For a moment, the entire place was dead silent. They stared at the palace of the ruins as if they were staring at the gates of hell. Caw, caw. All of a sudden, a pitch-black crow landed in the ruins. It was the evil crow that had been injured. It flapped its wings, its lifeless eyes filled with human-like mockery as it stared at Suyu without blinking. It was as if it was staring at a dying man. Were the group of emperor-level ancient beasts guarding the awakening of the thing in the Palace of the Ruins? Was it awake or not? Had it escaped the suppression of the first emperor? At this moment, no one could make up their minds. However, Suyu's eyes shone brightly. He immediately clenched his teeth. "I'll go take a look." He could clearly feel the terror of the thing being suppressed. It was not something that someone of his level could resist. Rather than waiting for death, he might as well investigate. "I'll go too." Princess Rukin clenched her teeth, leading the purple demon armored warriors in. The first prince suppressed the fear in his heart. This is the greatest enemy of the imperial family. It is useless to escape. We can only go in and take a look. My brothers, I'm afraid the fight for the position of crown prince will have to be temporarily halted. The fate of the empire is more important. If the thing being suppressed awakened, the empire would be destroyed. What was the point of fighting for the position of crown prince? Let's go together. The group of people mustered up their courage and entered the Palace of the Ruins. The palace was extremely spacious. In the center, there was a giant purple dragon nailed to the ground by 7 swords. The 7 swords were arranged in very mysterious positions, sealing the few dragon veins of the dragon, preventing it from using its dragon power. However, at this moment, more than half of a sword had been pushed out, and it was still slowly being pushed out, its speed increasing. It's the 7 swords dragon destruction formation of the first lord of the empire. The eldest imperial prince was immediately overwhelmed with shock. This sword formation has long been lost. Apart from the first holy sage, no one else knows how to use it. This true dragon is the peerless enemy that the first holy sage suppressed. Oh no, one of the swords is about to come out. The 7 swords dragon destruction formation has 7 swords in a row. If one sword is broken, the remaining 6 swords will lose their effect. The second prince's expression changed drastically. At the same time, an evil force that made people grovel rushed out from the purple dragon's body. In the face of this force, most of the intruders' legs turned to jelly and they knelt on the ground. They did not even have the strength to stand up. Only a few people could persist. He, are you the descendant of Dongfang Zun? Suddenly, a pair of huge yellow, lantern-like eyes on the purple dragon's had opened abruptly. Its cruel and pitiful gaze swept across them. Congratulations, you came at the right time. I'm going to use your blood as a blood sacrifice for me to be reborn. 2/3 of the sword had been pushed out. The first prince's face was full of fear. He gritted his teeth and stood up straight under the terrifying pressure. His forehead was covered in sweat. Evil dragon, don't even think about escaping from the first Lord's suppression. The first prince growled and walked toward the evil dragon. It seemed like he wanted to stab the sword back into the dragon's body. He, you said that Dongfang Zun suppressed me? Ha, what a joke. He's just an ant. How can he suppress me? The evil dragon raised its head and laughed. It seems like your first lord lied. He didn't tell you that you're just scum eliminated by the blood crystal race. Blood crystal race? The few members of the imperial family were confused. They had never heard of such a race in this world. A bunch of pitiful worms. I'll tell you the truth. The first lord that you speak of was merely a servant of mine in the past. He took the opportunity when I was being suppressed and broke free from my control to establish the so-called Dayu Empire. What a joke. Do you really believe that an ant is qualified to seal me? Hearing this, the few princes were shocked. They could not believe what they had just heard. Don't listen to his lies. He's just stalling for time. Let's go together and stab the sword back. The first prince saw through the other party's stalling plan. He did not believe that the ancestor he respected was a servant. The princes also charged toward the ancient sword without hesitation. No matter what, They had to subdue the true dragon first. Hee, ignorant and fearless ants. I'll show you. It suddenly spoke in the dragon language that no one could understand. Suddenly, the first prince, second prince, third prince, fourth prince, fifth prince, and Princess Rookin all held their heads. Their expressions were painful. The fifth prince, who was not mentally strong, screamed on the spot and fainted from the pain. The other princes were not much better. They all let out heart-wrenching screams. Chapter 1832. The purple true dragon's gaze swept across everyone, filled with mockery. However, when his gaze landed on one of the princes, he exclaimed in surprise, "Why are you fine?" Among them, only a silver-haired youth stood with his hands clasped behind his back. There was no sign of pain on his face. "You are not the descendant of that slave." The purple true dragon was stunned for a moment, then laughed. The descendants of that slave are getting worse with each generation. The current generation is being cuckolded and they don't even know it. Ridiculous, ridiculous. In the midst of the pain, the princes were fully focused on resisting the pain that originated from their bloodline. They didn't care about the true dragon's words at all. On the other hand, the people who came over looked at each other in dismay, and their expressions changed. The silver-haired youth was, of course, Siu. The only trace of the Eastern royal family's bloodline in his body had already been consumed during the Imperial Clan Court's dragon vat test. Because of this, he was not controlled by the purple true dragon. Don't spout nonsense. I just have thick skin, so I'm not afraid of pain. Su Yu smiled calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped on the ground with the tip of his foot and swiftly landed on the back of the purple true dragon. He grabbed the sword that was about to be blocked. The purple true dragon growled, "Brat, this is between me and that servant. It has nothing to do with you. You don't have to become enemies with the dragon clan for them." Su Yu's expression was calm. "Zhenlong, was it that amazing? I can even fight against the epic-making dragons of your dragon clan, let alone an evil dragon like you." The people who followed him were dumbfounded. The sixth prince had experience fighting against a true dragon? Hey, that's a true dragon. According to legend, true dragons were extraordinarily formidable and innately possessed the natural talent to control the laws. Every single move they made could affect the grand Tao of the world, and they were extremely terrifying. He had fought against a true dragon and was still alive. Are you serious? Have you seen that epic-making dragon before? Where? The purple true dragon was shocked. Su Yu chuckled. "I will send you to see him." As he spoke, he pressed his palm down, and the sword pierced a little deeper. Roar! The true dragon roared in pain, and a large amount of evil energy rose from its body. It roared, "Human ant, you dare to make an enemy of the dragon clan. You will die a horrible death." The dragon blood in his body surged as he forcefully resisted the ancient sword. Unexpectedly, the ancient sword rose up against the force and was slowly repelled out of the body. Law of giant strength. Su Yu said calmly. His body was surrounded by the rules of power, and the power in his hands increased tenfold. The true dragon roared in pain again. The peak overlords kneeling on the ground were filled with excitement. Long live the sixth prince! He single-handedly suppressed the evil dragon. How domineering was that? Su Yu pressed his palm down once again, and the last third of it was pushed in. The 7 swords returned to their positions and pinned him to the ground, rendering him unable to move. "Ah, human! I, the Mahayana evil dragon, swear that I will never let you off." The evil dragon hated Su Yu to the core. With great difficulty, he finally had the hope of escaping, but who knew that a meddlesome passerby would appear halfway? Everything would be for naught. Su Yu stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze cold and indifferent. Now, let's talk about who touched that ancient sword. After 100 million years, the 7 swords dragon-slaying formation was as stable as a rock. How could it be so coincidental that the sword formation would weaken just as they were fighting for the fate of the nation. The evil dragon breathed heavily through its nostrils as it slowly closed its eyes and remained silent. Su Yu smiled coldly. Let me guess. It should be the Corpse Clan, right? These words were like a bomb exploding in everyone's ears. The Corpse Clan? How did they sneak in? That's impossible. Everyone who enters has been double-checked by the prince and the gray-robed emperor. How could the Corpse Clan sneak in? The evil dragon's eyes, which were about to close, opened abruptly, and then pretended as if nothing had happened. Sure enough, Su Yu's gaze was cold as he coldly glanced at the hundreds of people present. When he found out that Yu Shanshan was a corpse hidden in Ma Li Princess Rukin, he had guessed that there might be others among the people of the other princes. Now, the strange changes in the Dragon Palace confirmed Su Yu's guess. Let me guess again. The purpose of releasing the evil dragon was to let it come out to fight against Dongfang Xia, so that the Corpse Clan could take advantage of the chaos to invade, right? He was very familiar with the tricks of the Corpse Clan. At the same time, you killed all the princes and princesses who came to the ruins to fight for the fate of the nation, right? The answer he got was a pair of horrified and bewildered eyes. If my guess is correct, at this moment, you are among this group of people, aren't you? The crowd was in an uproar. They were suspicious of each other, and fear and panic were growing in their hearts like weeds. But none of the Corpse Clan would admit it, and Su, you could not tell which one of them was a Corpse Clan member in human skin. Su Yu sat cross-legged on the dragon's back and said calmly, Your purpose is to release the Jinlong. As long as I stay here, you must fly out unless you give up on the mission. He responded with an action. The ones who were in a passive position were the Corpse Clan. His words completely moved the hidden Corpse Clan. Yes, if this continued, the ruins would close in half a month, and it would be impossible for them to enter again. If they failed the mission, they would die when they returned. Kill him. He's just the 6th prince of the Peak Overlord realm. How powerful can he be? A few half-step emperors exchanged looks. In the blink of an eye, 3 shadows streaked across the sky. They who had been stunned by the Jinlong's pressure and could not move were suddenly unaffected. The evil dragon's lips curled into a cold smile. Ants, I told you to get lost, so you can go to hell. It was the one who released the pressure on the Corpse Clan. Su Yu, who had been indifferent, suddenly changed his expression. 3 half-step emperors. How did my royal brothers select them? Such important half-step emperors are from the Corpse Clan. His shocked expression was on point. Everyone was shocked. It's over. How could the 6th prince be a match for 3 half-step emperors? But I heard that he had the combat power of a half-step emperor. That was in a one-on-one situation. How many are we fighting now? Moreover, the Corpse Clan is famous for being invulnerable. Ordinary divine techniques cannot harm them. We're finished. Su Yu hurriedly pulled out the Azura sword and fought with the 3 half-step emperors. In the first exchange of blows, he had fallen into a dangerous situation, and his soul had almost been destroyed twice. In a few breaths' time, he would have died. There's no need to hide anymore. Let's attack together and kill him first. 8 figures flew out from the crowd. Some were peak overlords, while others were half-step emperors. Seeing that the outcome had been decided, they all jumped out to kill Su Yu and claim credit. However, the panic in Su Yu's eyes gradually disappeared and was replaced by calmness. There might be 1 or 2 fish that slipped through the net, but it doesn't matter. It's enough to kill these few. His body suddenly burst forth with a cold light, the Azura sword bursting with the power to cut the heavens. Heaven-cutting sword, the powerful sword swept across the surroundings. The 3 Corpse Clan members who were suppressing him were caught off guard and were cut into 3 pieces. Sure enough, there was no blood flowing in their bodies, only a thick aura of death. The sudden change shocked the Corpse Clan members who had pounced forward, causing them to break out in a cold sweat and freeze in the air. Even their ferocious expressions froze. Su Yu revealed an elegant smile that was as bright as the moon in the 9 heavens. Are you very surprised? They were clearly the corpse clan that everyone respected, but at this moment several of the corpse clan members were shivering, as if the silver-haired human in front of them was the real corpse clan. Run! One of the corpse clan members shouted first, and the 8 corpse clan members turned and ran. At this moment, they only hated the fact that the corpse emperor did not give them an extra leg when he transformed them. Seeing that they had escaped from the range of the sword, Su Yu smiled coldly and waved his palm. Arrows! The 9 jade spiritual pearl flashed, and a giant bow fell into his palm. He pulled his arms, and an arrow shot out. A beam of light passed through, and a corpse clan member was smashed to pieces. 8 consecutive beams of light. No matter how far the corpse clan members ran, they were all pierced by the beam of light without exception. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. 5 half-martial emperors and 8 peak overlords had been brutally killed just like that. They really did not want to use the dark and cruel term, brutally killed, to describe the 6th prince, but that scene was indeed brutally killed. The only difference was that they were ecstatic. Brutally killed well. The corpse clan members were cruel and merciless. How many people had died tragically at their hands, and how many had become their food? Among them were women, children, and lonely old people. No matter how painful their deaths were, it was still a great satisfaction. Putting the Tiani bow on the dragon's back, Su Yu looked around at the crowd. Let's wait for the ruins to close. Compared to the fight for the throne, suppressing the evil dragon was more important. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like the crisis had been averted. Unfortunately, the wind would not stop blowing even if the tree desired peace. The evil dragon below slowly opened its eyes, and a hint of pity flashed through its eyes. Su Yu entered a meditative state to train, but his heart was thinking. Ever since he had entered the ruins, that sense of familiarity had come over him. Now he had found the source. It was the evil dragon beneath him. He was even more confused. He had never interacted with the evil dragon before. So where did that sense of familiarity come from? While he was thinking, Su Yu's hair suddenly stood on end. An inexplicable sense of danger lingered in his heart. Even the threads of fate were fluctuating violently. He had always been decisive. Sensing that something was amiss, he immediately rolled up his sleeves, bringing all the princes and the people with him out of the ruins. Rumble! A blood-red beam of light descended from the sky, destroying the ruins. Only the evil dragon's purple evil energy was able to withstand the blood-red beam of light. You can predict my attack in advance? Interesting. A young man in a fiery red robe suddenly appeared in the sky above the ruins. The young man's face was cold and evil, and he had 3 strange gourds tied to his waist. Seeing him, Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. The red-robed young man, the Double Crown Emperor who had taken the dragon blood. Who was he? True Lord Fire Dragon, you are too late, the evil dragon said coldly. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. They knew each other. Su Yu seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed again. True Lord Fire Dragon, the Double Crown Emperor. Could it be the Double Crown Fire Dragon that had suddenly appeared in the Dayu Empire while being hunted by Dongfang Xia? How did he sneak into the ruins of the Dayu Empire? Didn't they say that only those below the Martial Emperor level were allowed to enter? Why was he not affected? Also, Dongfang Xia was hunting him. How did he escape without Dongfang Xia noticing? The strength of this fire dragon was not something that Bei Wangqin, who had combined the 9 symbols into one, could compare to. He had only reached the level of the Double Crown Emperor. But this fire dragon had seriously injured the gray-robed Martial Emperor, and only his soul had escaped. True Lord Fire Dragon lowered his head and said mockingly, Haha, isn't this the famous Lord Evil Dragon? Oh, what happened to you? Why are you pinned here? Chapter 1833. Lord Hulong's expression turned serious. Isn't it all because of the epic-making dragon? Don't laugh at me. You were knocked unconscious by him back then, and he took advantage of you and suppressed you here, right? At the mention of the epic-making dragon, the two of them shared a common enemy, and sparks of hatred shot out. Back then, when the epic-making dragon stole the Dragon Tribe's supreme treasure book, the Dragon Abyss Treasure Scroll, the Dragon Emperor led the powerhouses of the Dragon Tribe to hunt them down. In the end, the epic-making dragon relied on his absolute strength and killed all the powerhouses of the Dragon Tribe who were chasing after him. Even the Dragon Emperor fell, and the supreme divine weapon of the dragon race that he carried with him, the royal power dragon sword, also disappeared. The epic-making dragon also disappeared without a trace. The two of them communicated with each other, not minding that someone was eavesdropping. Lord Evil Dragon glanced at Suyu coldly, and a cruel smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. "Ha! Why don't I tell True, Lord Fire Dragon, an unexpected piece of news? Apart from you and me, there is actually another person who knows about the epic-making dragon." Lord Huolong's expression changed, and he asked coldly, "Who?" "Yes, that insufferably arrogant, silver-haired human ant. He said himself that he was once an enemy of the epic-making dragon." Lord Evil Dragon laughed coldly. He knew Lord Huolong's temper very well. With just a few words, he could persuade him to destroy anyone or anything related to the epic-making dragon. As expected, Lord Huolong's gaze pierced through Suyu. His murderous intent erupted with a rumble. "And I'll extract your soul first, and then I'll interrogate you about the epic-making dragon." Lord Huolong said he would attack immediately. He casually shot out a blood-red beam of light. However, the direction of the beam of light was not Suyu, but Lord Evil Dragon. Lord Evil Dragon was furious, but he had already protected himself with evil energy. He said coldly, "A dog can't change its spots. After so many years, you still can't change your bad habit of looting a burning house." True Immortal Fire Dragon chuckled. "You're the same. You never trust anyone." He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, ignoring Suyu and the others. He stared at Lord Evil Dragon with a faint smile. "You don't think that I sensed your aura and came all the way here just to get rid of an ant for you, do you? What do you want?" The Evil Dragon Great Sage was silent. True Monarch Fire Dragon's eyes shone with a profound light. "Back then, you were just an insignificant little dragon. You accidentally obtained the lost Holy Scripture of the Dragon Clan and finally became the Evil Dragon Saint. What I want is that Holy Scripture." The Evil Dragon Great Sage was silent for a long time. Unexpectedly, he didn't refuse. He opened his mouth and spat out a jade disc. Fire Dragon Supreme was overjoyed. He grabbed it and glanced at it, but his face immediately sank. He crushed the jade disc and said coldly, "Don't try to fool me with the evil dragon divine body. That's just the surface of the Evil Dragon Bible. It's fine if you use it to fool outsiders. But do you think you can fool me?" Evil Dragon Great Sage said indifferently, "Take it or leave it, I only have this." True Immortal Fire Dragon's face darkened. "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Taste my true dragon divine fire." He slapped his palm on the Evil Dragon Saint's back, and a large amount of 9-colored flames erupted from his palm, instantly turning the Evil Dragon Saint into a flaming dragon. Roar! The dragon's body crackled as it burned, and the smell of burnt flesh entered everyone's noses. "Evil Dragon Saint, you are currently being suppressed. You can't resist the true dragon, divine fire. If you don't want to die, hand over the Evil Dragon Bible." The Evil Dragon Saint stared at him with resentment, but he gritted his teeth and didn't say anything. He understood that handing over the Evil Dragon Bible would make him die faster. If he didn't hand it over, he would still have a way to live. "Humph! Let's see if you'll say anything after I destroy your body." Fire Dragon Supreme roared. The 9-colored flames in his palm suddenly erupted, and it was more than 10 times stronger than before. Purple evil energy continued to rise from the evil dragon saint's body, and the scales on his body showed faint signs of melting. The evil dragon saint grimaced in pain, but he gritted his teeth. Fire Dragon Supreme set up an array formation to keep the 9-colored flames burning. He stood at the side with his hands behind his back, watching coldly. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. 3 days passed. No one dared to leave, and no one could leave. They personally heard the evil dragon Saint Monarch's miserable howls for 3 days. At this moment, all the scales on his body had been burned by the true dragon divine fire, and a large patch of flesh was exposed. Everyone felt pity for him. The world was really unpredictable. They thought that Fire Dragon Supreme, who was from the same race, would let the evil dragon Saint go and kill them all. But who would have thought that true monarch Fire Dragon's greed would cause mischief, torturing evil Dragon Sage to the point where he could neither live nor die. For 3 days, Fire Dragon Supreme was calm and composed. For days passed, 5 days passed, 6 days passed. The evil dragon saint's flesh was burned until it was pitch black, and his huge dragon body was visibly shorter. Countless pieces of flesh were burned. Under the inhumane torture, the evil dragon saint could no longer roar. Only his huge dragon eyes were shining with unyielding light. Fire Dragon Supreme couldn't sit still anymore. He said in a deep voice, "Evil Dragon Saint, why do you have to do this? If you hand it over, I can still let you live. Instead of suffering like this, why not hand it over?" But the evil dragon Saint was waiting. In another 9 days, the ruins of Yu the Great would transport all of them out. Even if he only had 1 dragon pearl left, he could slowly recover. At his level, his will to live was so strong that he would never give up even the slightest hope. Fine, let's see how long you can endure. The 7th day, the 8th day, the 9th day passed. In another 6 days, the ruins of Yu the Great would transport everyone out by force, including Fire Dragon Supreme. Anxiety began to appear on his face. He kept urging the true dragon, Divine Fire, to continue burning. The princes, princesses, and people looked at the 9 days quietly, not daring to make a sound. They were afraid that the furious Fire Dragon Supreme would vent his anger on them. "I don't believe you will never open your mouth." Fire Dragon Supreme snorted angrily. At this moment, a silver-haired youth walked out of the crowd. "Elder, I have a way to make him open his mouth." Fire Dragon Supreme didn't even look at him. He scolded, "Get lost, you ant." He didn't want to talk to an ant, and he didn't want to give him any chance to speak. So you did not speak. He silently took out a 7-foot-long, white, thread-bound spiritual plant. The enraged Fire Dragon Supreme seemed to sense it, looking over in surprise. He was overjoyed. "Ha-ha, 1,000-year-old dragon's beard grass. Give it to me." He waved his hand. A strong aura pushed Suyu away, forcefully snatching the dragon's beard grass. Suyu did not have the slightest bit of strength to resist. He staggered and fell to the ground, looking very pathetic. "Useless, but on account of your 1,000-year-old dragon's beard grass, I will spare your life for now." Fire Dragon Supreme laughed in disdain. The corners of the first prince's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but curse. Damn it, he really knew how to act. He had seen Suyu's trump card with his own eyes. If they really fought, Fire Dragon Supreme might not be able to do anything to him. Right now, she was acting as if she was very weak and would fall with just a push. This made the first prince grimace. He had been tricked by Suyu, but he wouldn't expose him. That Fire Dragon Supreme was obviously not easy to deal with. Once Lord Evil Dragon was dealt with, it might be their turn. If Suyu had a way to deal with him, he would be more than happy. He might even be able to reap the benefits of the fight. Fire Dragon Supreme laughed after obtaining the 1,000-year-old dragon's beard grass. "Lord Evil Dragon, you didn't expect this, did you? Also, The 1,000-year-old dragon's beard grass is extremely attractive to the dragon clan and living creatures with dragon bloodlines. I don't believe that you can resist the power of this item after starving for countless years. The dragon's beard grass was unimaginably attractive to imperial dragons and living creatures with dragon bloodlines. Even a normal dragon emperor would be unable to resist it, much less someone like Lord Evil Dragon, who had been suppressed for 1,000 years. Fire Dragon Supreme leisurely built a spectator stand. He took out a special wine that the Dragon Clan had brewed for a long time. He then took out some spiritual fruits that were unique to the Dragon Clan. Finally, he placed the dragon's beard grass neatly in the center of the table. He leaned comfortably on the chair. He drank a mouthful of wine, ate a spiritual fruit, then shook the dragon's beard grass. As expected, the eyes of the extremely determined Lord Evil Dragon started to flicker when he saw the dragon's beard grass. A desire that came from his soul was released deep within his heart. Despicable. Lord Evil Dragon finally spoke, his body trembling. Haha, so what if I am despicable? Fire Dragon Supreme took a bite of the spiritual fruit and said mockingly, If you don't agree, I will eat the dragon's beard grass. He couldn't help but look at the dragon's beard grass. A trace of desire flashed in his eyes as if it was instinctive. Lord Evil Dragon's eyes flickered even more intensely, but he didn't say a word. He clenched his teeth and persevered. Fire Dragon Supreme waited leisurely. There are 6 more days. When your soul is in a trance, you might not be able to endure it anymore. 12 days later, Lord Evil Dragon's body was completely burned to ashes, leaving only a human-sized shadow of a dragon lying on the ground. 7 sword auras pinned him to the ground, making him unable to escape. Dragon soul. His body was destroyed, leaving only his soul. However, a dragon pearl reverberated in his soul, releasing pure dragon power to resist the flames. Under the powerful flames, Lord Evil Dragon's soul became dazed and his will was shaken. Especially under the temptation of the dragon's beard grass, it was even more shaken. But Lord Evil Dragon maintained a sliver of clarity. 3 more days. It will be over in 3 days. I must endure it. 14 days later. Tomorrow is the last day. Lord Evil Dragon's soul consciousness was on the verge of collapse. He could no longer maintain the last sliver of clarity. Give me the dragon's beard grass, and I will give you the Evil Dragon Bible. Lord Evil Dragon said in a daze. The dragon ball spewed out a cloud of purple mist, forming a spell with clear handwriting. Fire Dragon Supreme glanced at it and said in ecstasy, Ha ha ha, it is the real Evil Dragon Bible. He immediately used a jade scroll to make a copy of the book. Then he looked at the Evil Dragon Sage with a sinister smile and pity. Hee, Evil Dragon Sage, oh, Evil Dragon Sage. Even if you are an old monster that has lived for hundreds of millions of years and your will is as hard as iron, in the end, you still can't resist the double torture of dragon beard grass and torture. While laughing, he stuffed the dragon's beard grass into his mouth and swallowed it whole. After that, he walked towards Lord Evil Dragon's dazed soul with a sinister smile and said coldly, Farewell, Lord Evil Dragon! Chapter 1834. Su Yu twisted his neck and walked out of the crowd with a faint smile. True, Lord Huolong, who was about to destroy the soul of the evil dragon lord, sensed something was wrong with the dragon beard grass. Without thinking, he immediately used his energy to shake his stomach and spit out all the food he had just eaten. However, it was too late. A piercing pain spread to his limbs and bones. Even with the toughness of the dragon race, he still felt the pain. True Lord Huolong's body trembled as he roared, Aunt, what did you feed me? He couldn't believe that the human, who he had subdued to the point of not daring to breathe, had dared to poison him. This was all because of his confidence and arrogance. If he had been more cautious, he probably wouldn't have swallowed this unknown dragon beard grass so easily. What he found strange was that with his realm and the unique sense of smell of the dragon race, If it was poisonous, he would have detected it immediately. Of course, it is the 1,000-year-old dragon beard grass. Su Yu smiled playfully. However, I added a little seasoning called the Luotian poison. The Luotian tears didn't poison him to death, so he kept the poison. Finally, he could put it to good use. "Ant, I will kill you." True Lord Hulong roared as he opened his mouth to spit out real dragon divine fire. "Even if I am poisoned, I am not someone a little ant like you can fight against." The crowd's expressions changed drastically. Only the first prince's lips curled into a smile. "Very well, finally someone was tricked like me. Haha." It felt like he had fallen into a trap and was being laughed at. However, not long after, someone more powerful than him also fell into the trap, which was a great comfort to him. Seeing the real dragon divine fire coming towards him, Su Yu's face was calm. With a light tap of his finger, hundreds of space blades burst out from his body. Puff, puff, puff. The true dragon divine flame was instantly annihilated by the space blades, leaving not a trace behind. Moreover, a large number of space blades enveloped true Lord Hulong, who was caught off guard. Clang, clang, clang. Shockingly, Bei Wangqin was crushed into a mist of blood by the space blades. However, when they landed on true Lord Hulong's body, they created a series of sparks. Only a few space blades managed to penetrate the weak points of his body. Most of the space blades were blocked by him. Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. It was even stronger than he had imagined. Fortunately, he had seen true immortal fire dragon fight with his own eyes and knew how powerful he was. So he poisoned him a little. Otherwise, he would be even more terrifying at his peak. But in true immortal fire dragon's eyes, being injured by an ant was undoubtedly challenging his bottom line. "You're courting death." Fire Dragon Lord roared angrily. The surface of his body spewed out divine fire that filled the sky and swept the surroundings indiscriminately. The divine flame was extremely unstable, and its direction was also abnormally chaotic. This was because he was poisoned. Even so, Su Yu still had to deal with it with all his might. He waved a large number of space blades and annihilated everything in front of him. 9 heavens of divine flame. Before the first attack stopped, true Monarch Fire Dragon immediately launched a second attack. 9 dark red fire dragons flew out of his body. This was condensed from his life divine flame, and its power was peerless. When the space blade struck the fire dragon, it only penetrated it, but it didn't weaken it in the slightest. At the same time, 9 dark red fire dragons spread out in all directions. Before they even got close, a few peak overlords nearby had already been burnt to ashes. Run! At this moment, even the first prince no longer had the intention to sit back and reap the benefits. A battle at the level of a double-crown divine warrior was too dangerous, because true Monarch Fire Dragon used to be a double-crown divine warrior. His strength couldn't be measured at all. The fact that he had easily escaped Dongfang Xia's pursuit and sneaked into the ruins showed how extraordinary he was. Su Yu was also secretly surprised. He didn't expect true Monarch Fire Dragon to be so powerful even after being poisoned. At his peak, true Monarch Fire Dragon Lord could kill him within a few breaths. Seeing that everyone was retreating, Su Yu did not run away. With a light snort, the bracelet on his wrist shook and a large amount of silk, invisible to the naked eye, shot out in a straight line. Poof! The 9 dark red fire dragons were penetrated by the silk and immediately became much weaker. The silk did not slow down, shooting toward true Monarch Fire Dragon. "You're really courting death." True Monarch Fire Dragon was extremely furious. He raised his hand to grab the silk. Unexpectedly, the silk was shockingly sharp. As he grabbed it, half of his palm was cut off as if it were a piece of paper. "Ah, I'll kill you." As he strengthened the poison in his body, he activated the power of the desolation, swearing to kill Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes were calm. The silk swept in all directions, trying to destroy his body as much as possible. "Protective dragon fire!" He roared, and the surface of his body was covered with red-black flames, forming a layer of scales. The speed of the silk, which had always been successful, suddenly slowed down when it came into contact with the scales. At the same time, he roared angrily and rushed over. However, halfway through, the poison in his body showed signs of being unable to be suppressed. His whole body trembled, and the black flaming scales on the surface of his body became unstable. A few silk threads took the opportunity to pierce into his body and cut him in half. Half of his body was cut off. However, the dragon blood in his body seemed to have a mind of its own. It forcefully pulled the two halves of his body back together. The two of them were in a stalemate. The space blade and the real dragon divine fire were flying everywhere. Not many people dared to approach them, except for a few. However, a few sneaky figures quietly approached the soul of true monarch, evil dragon. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. The first prince, who was watching from afar, suddenly changed his expression and shouted, "Holy Lady Concord, what are you doing?" Among those sneaky people, there was the Holy Lady of the Holy Union, Holy Ground. She ignored him and followed a group of people in black robes to the front of the dragon's soul. The Holy Lady Concord raised her hand and inserted a talisman into the dragon's soul. Cool energy was emitted, and the dragon's soul, which had lost its consciousness, was awakened. After it woke up, it immediately let out a soul-shaking scream. "True monarch, evil dragon, you despicable person! Give me back the evil dragon Bible." The Holy Lady Concord and the others changed their expressions slightly. She comforted him. "True monarch, evil dragon, please calm down. We are here to save you." The first prince, who was watching from afar, was terrified. He was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. "Are you trying to get us killed? Or who are you taking orders from?" He had never expected that the Holy Lady Concord, who was a well-known half-step martial artist, would do such a thing at the last moment. The Concord Saintess turned her head and looked at him in disdain. She giggled. "Of course, I'm obeying an existence that you can't imagine. Otherwise, you wouldn't think that I, a dignified saintess of a 2-star civilization, would willingly submit to you, right?" "You." The eldest prince roared in anger and charged back. Although the evil dragon, Holy Monarch, only had his soul left, once the 7 swords were released and he had a chance to breathe, he would be able to recover most of his cultivation. Even if he recovered to the level of a double crown emperor, it was enough to kill everyone in the ruins. No matter how strong Suyu was, he could not possibly be strong enough to fight 2 of them alone, could he? It's too late. The joyous Union Saintess smiled coldly and said to the evil dragon Saint Monarch, "My master, I hope that after you escape, you can help us eliminate the Dongfang royal family, leaving no one alive." Now that the evil dragon great sage had a chance to escape, how could he refuse? Moreover, he already had plans to slaughter the descendants of the former slaves. Even if they didn't ask him to do so, he would still do it. All right. The joyous Union Saintess nodded and took the lead to fly towards the loosened ancient sword. "Let's go together and pull out the ancient sword." The black-robed men behind him all came before the ancient sword and slowly pulled it out. At this moment, the first prince, who was far away, had no time to stop them. He could only watch as they slowly pulled out the ancient sword. Despair was written all over his face. It's over. If the evil dragon Saint Monarch escaped, the Dayu Empire would be finished. Now it was too late to escape. The teachings passed down from generation to generation were finally coming true. The joyous Union Saintess' lips curled into a cold smile. This barren land does not need a 3-star civilization to rule over everyone, so it's better to destroy it. There were several 2-star civilizations nearby, but who would be willing to submit to the Dayu Empire? The only way was to destroy it. Coincidentally, a powerful force had contacted the Joyous Union civilization and wanted to destroy the Dongfang royal family. The two sides hit it off and began a plan that had lasted for several years. The most important part was to liberate the evil dragon Saint Monarch. Along the way, the unexpected corpse clan had appeared, and Suyu, who was so powerful that it made one's scalp numb, had also appeared. But everything was fixed at this moment. It's over, the Diyu Empire, the Dongfang royal family. The Joyous Union Saintess closed her eyes and let out a carefree sigh. However, just as the ancient sword was 2/3 out, and as long as they put in a little more effort, they would be able to pull it out completely, something strange happened. 2/3 of the ancient sword was actually attached to a hidden space blade. How could the Joyous Union Saintess and the black-robed men guard against it? Creak! As the space blade spun, more than half of the bodies of everyone, including the Joyous Union Saintess, were destroyed. All of them, even their souls, were destroyed. With one blow, everyone was destroyed. Suyu, who was fighting true Lord Huolong, had a cold smile on his face. The first prince, who had rushed over, was stunned for a moment. He then heaved a huge sigh of relief and shouted, "Brother, sister, hurry over and protect the sword formation. Remember, don't bring anyone over. Similarly, anyone who doesn't belong to the royal family. Kill anyone who comes over." He was really scared. There was the corpse clan in front and the mysterious force behind. It was even more thrilling just now. He was covered in cold sweat. It was a close call. It was really a close call. Fortunately, the sixth prince had foreseen it and was prepared to bury a space blade in the sword. He had probably calculated that there might be remnants of the corpse clan or unknown forces plotting to release the evil dragon, Saint Monarch. At that time he would be entangled. Everything was as he had expected. Such a situation had actually occurred. At this moment, the first prince stared at his sixth prince, his emotions extremely complicated. What kind of frightening man was this? His abilities were so strong that he felt hopeless. His intelligence was so high that he could only look at him in the dust. In such a complicated environment, he could calmly set up a trap. The first prince shuddered at the thought of becoming enemies with such a being. The rest of the princes looked at Suyu with complicated gazes. On one hand, they admired him, but on the other, they were worried. With such a man with such abilities and talents, if he were to ascend the throne, would there still be a place for them? More specifically, would they still be able to live? Only Princess Rukin's eyes were shining like stars. She stared at Suyu, who was fighting the double-crowned divine Lord Huolong. She felt that his figure was the most majestic she had ever seen. With him, she did not have to worry about anything. She would live in safety for the rest of her life. On the other hand, the evil dragon Saint Monarch had once again been forcefully broken free by Suyu. He was completely trapped in an eternal suppression. He hated Suyu to the core. Little bastard. I, the evil dragon Saint Monarch, swear that one day I will make you wish you were dead. Suyu ignored him, wholeheartedly standing with true Lord Huolong. Chapter 1835. They fought from noon all the way to night. True Lord Fire Dragon was strong. Even though he was poisoned, he was still able to fight Suyu without being at a disadvantage. But the more he suppressed the Luotian tears, the greater the impact on his body. Seeing that he was gradually at a disadvantage, and that he had no time to kill the evil dragon Lord Soul, he turned into a fire dragon and charged into the sky, roaring angrily, "Human ant, I will make you regret this sooner or later. Just you wait." Humph! The silk on Suyu's wrist turned into a giant net, covering half of his body and pulling him back. Creak! Large pieces of flesh were scraped off. Among them was a dragon claw. The dragon claw was tightly holding on to a jade disc. It was the one with the evil dragon, Holy Scripture. True Lord Fire Dragon was shocked and was about to turn around to snatch it back. But Suyu was one step faster, using the power of space to snatch it back. Ah! True Lord Fire Dragon was going crazy. The evil dragon Bible that he had painstakingly obtained had ended up in the hands of a human ant. But he did not dare stay any longer. The Luotian poison in his body was acting up more and more violently, and if this continued, he might really die at the hands of this human who had mastered the law of space. "I will not forgive you," true Lord Fire Dragon roared, slamming his head into the seal at the end of the sky. The relic sensed something and immediately produced a teleportation force, sending true Lord Fire Dragon out. Su Yu's eyes were filled with regret. What a pity. He had wanted to keep him here, but this battle had not been in vain. Looking at the evil dragon Bible in his palm, he smiled playfully. No wonder it felt familiar. So that's why. The evil god had given him the evil dragon divine body was quite powerful. When he cultivated the divine dragon body, he could transform into a dragon to fight, increasing his fighting power to a whole new level. But his body had been taken away by the sinful woman, and the evil dragon divine body he had cultivated was all in that body. Unexpectedly, due to a freak combination of factors, he actually obtained the evil dragon Bible. The so-called evil dragon divine body was a small part of the content that evil dragon lord had compiled based on this Bible to deceive outsiders. The evil god had obtained the evil dragon divine body. The true evil dragon's sacred scripture's power is limitless. Even the former four-crown emperor fire dragon, true monarch, coveted this scripture. If he could cultivate it successfully, his body would be strengthened to an unimaginable level. Under the evil dragon's resentful gaze, Suyu put it away in his bosom. Shortly after, Suyu searched the scene of the battle and found many good things. True immortal fire dragon's flesh was the blood and flesh of a true dragon. What was even more precious was that the 3 gourds of dragon blood on his waist had fallen off during the battle, which had benefited Suyu. He opened it and saw that one of the gourds was almost empty, while the other 2 were full. The dragon blood was very pure, not any less than the dragon blood of true immortal fire dragon himself. Suyu was slightly delighted. With 2 gourds of dragon blood, as well as true Lord Fire Dragon's dragon blood and dragon flesh, the power of the Royal Power Dragon sword would definitely erupt after he absorbed it. In addition, cultivating the evil dragon divine body also required the physique of the dragon race. Dragon blood was also very useful for cultivating this scripture. Suyu was very satisfied with the rewards he had gained. The princes and princesses' eyes were red. That was real dragon blood. Even if they did not need it to cultivate, it would still be very useful as a special ingredient. Who dared to compete with Suyu for these things? Moreover, these were Suyu's spoils of war. Who had the right to fight for them? Of course, there was one more thing that he could consider. He came in front of Lord Evil Dragon in a flash, looking him up and down. The first prince raised his eyebrows, secretly shocked. Could it be that Suyu had set his sights on Lord Evil Dragon's soul? Haha, Lord Evil Dragon, you must hate me a lot, right? Suyu smiled innocently. The princes' mouths twitched. They all felt sorry for Lord Evil Dragon. He had waited for hundreds of millions of years, and finally had 2 chances to escape. But what had happened in the end? Just as he was about to succeed, he had been sent back to hell by Suyu's palm. The greatest pain in the world was the feeling of falling from heaven to hell, right? Moreover, he had experienced it twice. One could only imagine the indignation and resentment he felt. Human ant, you will not live long. Lord Fire Dragon is vicious and vengeful. He will not let you off. Lord Evil Dragon laughed coldly. Suyu shrugged. Just now, you also thought that Lord Fire Dragon would kill me when he appeared. But what happened in the end? Hee. Half a month of inhumane torture fell on your body. Nothing is set in stone. Maybe the next time we meet, I will be the one hunting him down, Suyu said calmly. Lord Evil Dragon was silent, a sinister look in his eyes. He had thought that Lord Fire Dragon's arrival would help him escape. But what happened in the end? What are you trying to say? Lord Evil Dragon's eyes flashed. He vaguely understood, what Suyu wanted to say. Suyu had a faint smile. I want to say that maybe one day I will return, and maybe you will follow me from then on. Dream on. Ha ha ha, this dream is not far off. He had mastered the evil dragon Bible, completely controlled the dragon sword, and commanded all the divine dragons in the world. Goodbye. Suyu waved his hand. Right at that moment, the 1-month period was up. The seals of the whole relic began to transport people out. One by one, they left one by one. Somewhere, Xiao Dai was patting her belly contentedly. There was a beast soul of an ancient, ferocious beast beside her. That was one of Gu Taishu's 9 beast souls. It's a pity that he ran away fast. Otherwise, I would have eaten all the good stuff on him. All of a sudden, a spatial vortex swept over and teleported her out. No, I haven't had enough. She grabbed the ground with both hands, resisting the power of the transportation discontentedly. But she was still transported out. In another place, the north-gazing pearl carefully plucked a strange, jade-like, spiritual plant. Her face was filled with excitement. After a month, I didn't come in vain. Suyu, say goodbye. I don't want to meet you in my dreams anymore. A wave of space power swept over and transported her out. When Suyu opened his eyes, he appeared in front of the seal. The gray-robed emperor was nowhere to be seen. He must be hunting down the injured Lord Fire Dragon. The man in the bamboo hat, the youth in the blood mist, and Bei Wangqin were all nowhere to be seen. They had left the relic earlier, and their whereabouts were unknown. A few princes and royal sisters were gathered here. There was also a large group of people. The number of people was less than half as compared to when they had first entered. The only ones who had not changed much were the purple demon armored warriors. Only a few dozen of them had fallen. The relic of the Dayu had ended. What came next was the most important moment. Who would become the next ruler of the Dayu Empire? The princes cast their gazes toward the first prince, Princess Rukin, and Suyu simultaneously. It was common knowledge that the first prince had the most national luck, equivalent to 10 balls of imperial luck. Next were Princess Rukin and Suyu, who had 6 balls of imperial luck. The second prince had 2 balls of imperial luck. The third prince and the fourth prince had 3 balls. The result was very obvious. The first imperial prince had won everyone's expectations and was already the future monarch. But everything had to be seen by the gray-robed emperor. Soon, the gray-robed emperor returned with a gloomy expression. It looked like he had failed to capture true Lord Fiery Dragon. Concealing his strange expression, he looked at the princes and princesses, his aged face revealing a gratified expression. Thank goodness you are all fine. When he first discovered true Lord Fiery Dragon charging out of the relic, the gray-robed emperor was uneasy. He was thinking about how many princes and princesses were still alive. Dongfang Xia had chased after the fire dragon for a long time. It was normal for him to seek revenge on the members of the royal family. Miraculously, they were all safe and sound. The princes and princesses looked at Suyu in unison. If it wasn't for him, the gray-robed sovereign lord's words might have been something else. To think that the double-crowned fire dragon used the golden cicada shedding carapace to deceive the monarch, taking the opportunity to sneak into the relic. The gray-robed emperor comforted the crowd. But you need not worry. The monarch and the 2 imperial guardians are already on their way back. The crowd cheered, jumping for joy. Dongfang Xia was their backbone. Now that he was back, everything was stable. Only Suyu's pupils shrank imperceptibly. He had to leave the empire immediately. There was no time to lose. He cupped his fists. Elder, it is time to compare the nation's fortunes. The gray-robed emperor nodded slightly. All right, let's start with Princess Rukin. Princess Rukin was a little nervous. Based on what she knew, the first prince would definitely win. But she did not know why, but she had an indescribable trust in Suyu. She believed that he would give her an unexpected surprise. Hence, she calmly took out the nation's fortune that she had led the people to hunt. The gray-robed emperor meticulously appraised and calculated, finally nodding in satisfaction. The nation's fortune is 3,100. A ball of emperor-level ancient beast's fortune was 1,000, while a peak overlord's was 10. All of the nation's fortunes were quantified in numbers, making it easier to calculate the results. Sixth Prince, what about you? The gray-robed emperor was filled with anticipation. The second prince, the third prince, and the fourth prince did not think much of it. They had all heard him admit that there were less than 3 balls. So you did not answer. I want to hand mine over to Princess Rookin. The gray-robed emperor was solemn. Are you sure? He wanted Suyu to ascend to the throne the most, not Princess Rookin. Yes. Do you understand the meaning behind this? The gray-robed emperor asked again. Suyu nodded slightly. The gray-robed emperor looked at him deeply. After a long time, he sighed regretfully. All right, if you insist, I cannot stop you. If you are willing, you can transfer the nation's fortune to the other princes and princesses, but you will also lose the right to become the crown prince. The second prince calmly said, Anyway, all of you combined cannot compare to the first prince's. What's the point of transferring it? That's right, sixth brother. Don't waste everyone's time. Everyone is tired after this month, and we want to train immediately. The third prince and the fourth prince said one after another. They had no hope of becoming the crown prince, so they were disheartened. Chapter 1836. The princes were stunned. Was this the pocket that contained the nation's fortune? Why was it so swollen? The second prince was stunned, but he said nonchalantly, If there's too much of the nation's fortune, it would be swollen as well. It's not surprising. He patted his own pocket, which looked a little swollen as well. Although the nation's fortune he had obtained was only equivalent to 2 lumps of imperial-level nation's fortune, the ancient beasts he had hunted were not powerful, resulting in a large number of them. That was why his pocket was swollen. Hearing his words, the other princes didn't care anymore. Only the first prince's expression sank. He was the only one who knew that the reason his pocket was swollen was not because he had too many low-level nations' fortunes. There were at least 8 imperial-level nations' fortunes in that pocket. Including Princess Rookin's, it was equivalent to 11 imperial-level nations' fortunes. As for the first prince, he only had 10 imperial-level nations' fortunes. What should he do? He had schemed for so long, and he did not want to admit defeat just like that. As these thoughts ran through his mind, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. An extremely daring idea appeared in his mind. I'll just have to give it a try. The princes looked at Suyu as he handed the pocket to the gray-robed emperor. The gray-robed emperor was a little surprised. It was rare to see a pocket swollen, and it was usually because he had captured more of the nation's fortunes. Considering that Suyu was only a peak overlord, the gray-robed emperor understood why the sixth prince was willing to give his to Princess Rookin. It was probably because he did not have much of the nation's fortune and knew that he had no hope, so he made some sort of exchange with Princess Rookin. As he thought of this, he waved his hand and poured out all of the nation's fortunes. Walala, big and small nations' fortunes, colorful and colorful, fell to the ground. The small ones were the size of a fist, while the big ones were half a zhang in size. There were only about 200 fist-sized ones, which were equivalent to 2 lumps of imperial-level ancient beast souls. There were as many as 10 lumps of the larger ones. Other than the 80 or 90 lumps that Suyu had killed, he had also snatched the second prince's nation's fortunes when he rescued Empress Siwei. There were only about 200 lumps of the smaller ones. They were equivalent to 12 lumps of imperial-level nations' fortunes. The princes were all stunned, even the first prince, who was already mentally prepared. Apart from those 7, he had also killed 3 emperor-level ancient beasts. Furthermore, He had also killed a shocking number of scattered ancient beasts. The second prince, the third prince, and the fourth prince were all stunned. Didn't you say there were only 3 balls of emperor-level national fate? The second prince was shocked, and he couldn't help but ask. Su Yu replied calmly, "Do you believe everything I say?" The second prince was speechless. If it were him, he would also hide it. However, there were simply too many of them, so many that he couldn't even imagine it. The gray-robed old man's eyes shone brightly. He waved his sleeves and immediately swept up all of the nation's fate, pressing it into a cauldron. Not long after, a string of numbers appeared in the furnace. The total national luck is 12,300, the gray-robed emperor announced. He really didn't expect that Su Yu alone could obtain so much of the nation's destiny and break the previous best record. This is too shocking. The gray-robed emperor couldn't contain his excitement. He had not misjudged Su Yu. Someone who could cultivate one of the 8 great laws was definitely not a simple person. At the same time, he was even more confused. Why did Su Yu have to give all of the nation's destiny to Princess Rukin when he could have ascended the throne himself? Sixth Prince, let me ask you one last time. Do you really want to voluntarily give the nation's destiny to Princess Rukin? He secretly signaled Su Yu with his eyes, telling him not to do so. Yes. But Su Yu didn't seem to hear him, agreeing without hesitation. The gray-robed emperor sighed silently. Without another word, he gathered Princess Rukin's 3 fragmented pieces of the nation's destiny and pressed them into the same cauldron. The total value displayed was 15,400. Princess Rukin cried tears of joy. The outcome had been decided. No matter how powerful the first prince was, could he surpass this value? Impossible. Her dream was finally about to be fulfilled. She wanted to ascend the throne as the empress. She wanted to gather the strength of the entire nation to annihilate the eldest princess of the Dayu Empire, Dongfang Xinlei, and her followers. She wanted to avenge her mother and uncle. Her dream of many years was about to be fulfilled. She looked deeply at Su Yu, her heart filled with indescribable gratitude. She thanked fate for allowing her to meet someone like Su Yu. He was extremely powerful, and he kept his promise. He could have become the emperor of the Dayu Empire himself, but he still kept his promise. At this moment, Princess Rukin wouldn't reject any request from Su Yu. She was willing to repay him with everything she had. Emperor Wu Hin, who was watching from afar, also shed tears of excitement. Finally, she had come this far. She looked deeply at Su Yu, silently thanking him countless times in her heart. The gray-robed emperor looked dispirited. Next, the 5th prince, he said indifferently. The 5th prince stepped forward and took out a slightly bulging bag. It was filled with fragmented pieces of the nation's destiny. 3,200, the gray-robed emperor announced expressionlessly. I'll pass it to my eldest brother. Sure. The gray-robed emperor didn't even try to persuade him to stay, agreeing immediately. Next, the 4th prince also took out a bag of similar size. He didn't seem to care. After all, it wouldn't be his turn. At this moment, his ears twitched, as if someone was sending him a telepathic message. He looked conflicted. Then his expression changed as he looked at Su Yu in surprise. Hurry up! The gray-robed emperor was impatient. The 4th prince came back to his senses, clenching his teeth. I'll pass it to my eldest brother as well. Everyone's expressions changed. They weren't surprised that the 5th prince would pass it to the 1st prince. The 5th prince had always followed the 1st prince's lead. But what was up with the 4th prince? The relationship between the two of them was shallow. The gray-robed emperor's eyes flashed. Are you sure? Yes. I'll pass it all to my eldest brother, the 4th prince said with certainty. This time, Princess Rukin and Emperor Wu Hen's expressions changed. What had happened? Why would the fourth prince make such a decision? The gray-robed emperor looked at him deeply, nodded, and left his nation's destiny aside. 3,100. Next, the third prince. Unexpectedly, as soon as the third prince came up, he immediately said, "I'll transfer all of mine to eldest brother." Everyone's expressions changed completely. The members of the imperial family began discussing secretly. At first, they had thought that the first prince would surely take first place. Then they thought it would be Suyu. Now, the situation had taken a strange turn. The gray-robed emperor's expression turned solemn. He had also sensed that something was amiss. Sure, he also left his nation's destiny aside. 3,000. Second prince. The second prince walked forward hesitantly, his eyes still filled with hesitation. His gaze flickered between Suyu and the first prince. Finally, he clenched his teeth. "I'll pass it all to the first prince." Everyone's pupils shrank. All the princes had sided with the first prince. 2,000. First prince, come forward. The gray-robed emperor commanded. The first prince walked forward calmly, a victorious smile on his lips. Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhin's hearts clenched. The second prince, the third prince, the fourth prince, and the fifth prince combined already had more than 11,000 destiny. The first prince only needed to take out 5 more balls of emperor-level ancient beast's destiny to turn the tables. At this moment, everyone's hearts clenched. Only a small number of people who knew the inside story had different expressions. The 4 princes knew the first prince. There were more than 5 emperor-level destinies on him. There were a total of 7. For example, Princess Rukin had 2 more. Those 2 were the absolute disparity between them. The gray-robed emperor opened his pocket nervously. Everyone's gaze was focused on it. The fateful moment had arrived. He poured out all the nation's destiny and pressed it into the cauldron. A string of clear numbers appeared. 7,100. He sighed in his heart. He was 1 step behind. What a pity, what a pity. The 6th prince was a genius who had single-handedly obtained 12 balls of the nation's destiny. He had created a grand event in the history of the empire. Unfortunately, he was no match for the collusion of the princes. Although he had lost, he was still proud. Many years later, the history of the empire would record the stunning stroke of the 6th prince of a certain dynasty. The gray-robed emperor secretly felt that it was a pity. With a wave of his big sleeves, the few princes' destiny stacked up to 17,400. Finally, 2 cauldrons were placed in front of the gray-robed emperor. One of them was Princess Rukin, 15,400. The other was the first prince, 17,400. The latter was 20,000 more. Emperor Wuhin's expression was gloomy, extremely bitter. No one had expected it to turn into a situation where all the princes had joined forces to deal with the 6th prince and Princess Rukin. The unfair comparison had caused them to lose their last hope. Princess Rukin's expression was pale, her eyes slightly dazed. She had worked so hard, but in the end, she had been defeated in such a manner. She was indignant, but so what? A defeat was a defeat, but she was not discouraged. Instead, she turned to console Suyu, forcing a smile. "You have already done your best. I am very grateful. You are not responsible for this defeat." With all the princes joining forces, no one else could have won. Suyu sighed, rubbing her head. He could not help but feel sorry for the princess. With the first prince in power, the other princes might have been able to escape. Only she, the princess who had exposed her ambition and almost threatened his position, could not be allowed to live. In this life, she would not be able to avenge her mother and uncle. She would most likely have to live a destitute life. The gray-robed emperor looked at the 2 cauldrons, saying indifferently, "If there are no objections to the examination process, then I will seal the fate of the 2 cauldrons and hand them over to the monarch when he returns." Dongfang Xia had to personally oversee the conferment of the crown prince. The gray-robed emperor could not make the decision. The first prince smiled and nodded. He looked at Su Yu, laughing in his heart. So what if you have shocking abilities? The future crown prince would still be him. What about you? The gray-robed emperor looked at Su Yu. Su Yu was about to nod when he suddenly sensed something. His brows creased, and his expression changed slightly. I have an objection. His words once again stirred the hearts of the crowd. Could it be that the sixth prince still had the empire's fate? The gray-robed emperor looked curious. You still have the empire's fate? No, I have already taken it out, Su Yu said truthfully. The first prince's wildly beating heart gradually calmed down. Su Yu's words had given him a shock. The other princes also heaved a sigh of relief. Su Yu's unfathomable abilities had scared them. They were afraid that Su Yu had some sort of backup plan. Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhin's faces, which had just lit up, quickly dimmed. The gray-robed emperor calmly said, Since you do not have it, then… Chapter 1837. Somewhere in the sky, in a chaotic space, a petite girl in a colorful robe was forcibly transported out by Su Yu using the law of space. What's going on with this lousy relic? Why did it trap me inside and not let me out? It forced me to bite through the seal and run back through the void. Xiao Dai muttered, chewing on a fragment of the seal. Everyone was stunned. What did she say? Many people could not believe their ears. She said that she was forced to stay in the relic, then she bit through the seal and escaped. Everyone was confused, not understanding who the mysterious girl was or where she had come from. The gray-robed emperor's expression changed slightly, turning to look at the seal behind him. The seal was flickering, showing signs of damage. Fortunately, the area of damage was not large, and it quickly repaired itself. His face was filled with shock. Eating a seal? This was unheard of. Who are you? The gray-robed emperor bellowed. Xiao Dai glared at him. Old man, what are you yelling about? I'll eat you if you yell again. The gray-robed emperor was so angry that his beard was puffed and his eyes were wide open. The aura of a double-crowned emperor was released. Elder, please wait. She is my spiritual pet. Su Yu reached out and placed his hand on Xiao Dai's shoulder, stopping her from exploding. Spiritual pet. The gray-robed emperor was stunned. The girl in front of him was clearly a human. How could she be a spiritual pet? Well, it was not uncommon to subdue beauties from various races as spiritual pets. It was understandable that the sixth prince had such a taste. The gray-robed emperor suppressed his anger. You said that this spiritual pet has the fortune of the nation? Nodding, Su Yu said, Using one's own spiritual pet to help seize the fortune of the nation is not against the rules, is it? The gray-robed emperor shook his head. Spiritual pets are also a part of one's own abilities. Naturally, it is not against the rules. If the 5 princes were allowed to join forces to suppress one prince and princess, what was the help of a mere spiritual pet? Even the first prince merely furrowed his brows, not daring to say that it was against the rules. However, after carefully observing Xiao Dai's aura, he was not very worried. This spiritual pet did not have the aura of an emperor, or rather, it did not even have the aura of a peak overlord. What kind of ancient beast could such a spiritual pet kill? Could it be a deity-level beast? He laughed contemptuously. The second prince and the other princes also smiled faintly after being stunned for a moment. Sixth brother has actually placed his hopes on such a spiritual pet. It seems that he really doesn't have any backup plans. The princes exchanged glances and secretly laughed. Su, you didn't know Xiao Dai's exact strength. She hadn't fought since she woke up. How many ancient beasts did you kill? Su Yu stroked her head as he asked. Yes, it must be an emperor-level ancient beast or higher. Xiao Dai stretched out her index finger. 1. Su Yu sighed inwardly. Although it was unexpected that she could kill emperor-level ancient beasts, it was still not enough. The eldest imperial prince and the others heaved a sigh of relief. What a close call! This unassuming young girl was actually able to kill an emperor-level ancient beast. The gray-robed sovereign said, "Take it out." Xiao Dai glared at him and angrily slapped a shriveled bag on the table. "Humph, see for yourself." The gray-robed sovereign's face was indifferent as he opened the bag and poured out the nation's fate. But when he shook it, nothing came out. "What's going on?" The gray-robed sovereign muttered to himself. He could clearly feel the nation's fate inside, but he couldn't pour it out. This was the first time he had encountered something like this. "Break!" He pointed at the bag with one hand, but with a soft rumble the bag exploded. The nation's fate grew from small to large, like a rapidly expanding balloon. In the blink of an eye, it had grown from the size of a fist to a size of 500 feet. The gray-robed sovereign was caught off guard and was pushed back by the nation's fate, crashing into the seal. "Ah, what is this thing? It's huge!" The princes were also forced back. They couldn't see the whole thing from a close distance, but the people watching from afar were petrified, staring at the massive nation's fate without blinking. They were all dumbfounded. The eldest imperial prince was stunned. He stepped back to look at the giant object and was also petrified. The other princes did the same, all of them looking as if they had seen a ghost. In the instant that the nation's fate expanded, Su Yu pulled Princess Rooken back. Looking at the massive object, he was slightly taken aback. He then smiled. "You're lucky to have picked up a bargain." Xiao Dai raised her neck. "Come on. It took me a lot of effort to eat that crow, but it tasted pretty good. Just not as good as those ferocious spirits." The speaker was unintentional, but the listener was interested. The princes shuddered, looking at Xiao Dai in shock. Crow. Could it be the ancient beast with the double crown that Su Yu and Bei Wangqin had injured in the ruins of Yu, the Great, the evil crow? When Su Yu and true Lord Fire Dragon were fighting, the evil crow had long since escaped. No one knew where it had gone. Unexpectedly, that meant that the incredibly massive nation's fate before them was a nation's fate at the level of a double crown ancient beast. The gray-robed sovereign was shocked, his scalp tingling as he stared at Su Yu's spiritual pet. That evil crow had been eaten by her? He finally believed that this spiritual pet had come out after eating the seal in the ruins of Yu the Great. Calming himself down, he spent a lot of effort to force the massive nation's fate into the cauldron. 100,000. The gray-robed sovereign could not help but feel excited. This was the nation's fate of a double crown ancient beast, 100 times that of a single crown ancient beast. "I will still gift it to my sister," Su Yu said calmly, his tone firm and without the slightest bit of hesitation. The gray-robed sovereign sighed again, then inserted the 15,400 pieces of the nation's fate into the cauldron. He looked at the princes and princesses again. "Any objections?" The faces of the first prince and the others were ashen, unable to recover from their shock. So what if there were objections? Could they conjure up 100,000 pieces of the nation's fate? Since there are no objections, seal the cauldron and wait for His Majesty to personally announce the results of the succession. Now, the fight for the nation's fate at the ruins of Yu, the Great, is officially over. The gray-robed sovereign waved his hand and kept the 2 cauldrons. With this announcement, the fight for the nation's fate that affected the entire empire finally came to an end. Princess Rooken's mansion was filled with joy. Various members of the royal family came to congratulate her. In the past, Princess Rooken was not taken seriously by any member of the royal family. They were more interested in befriending the first prince. But now, she was the future empress of the Diyu Empire. Princess Rooken was exhausted dealing with the situation. Even Emperor Wuhan was busy. Su Yu stood in the air above the 6th prince's mansion, looking at the bustling princess's mansion. He smiled. "Let's go." Aren't you going to say goodbye to her? Xiao Dai lay on the roof, her left hand holding the dragon's flesh and her right hand holding the dragon's blood. This was Su Yu's reward for her. There's no need. I've kept my promise. Let's go, Su Yu said calmly. Dongfang Xia was about to return. He could not stay in the Diyu Empire any longer. With the identity of the sixth prince, Su Yu could easily leave the palace. Soon, he used the transportation portal and arrived at the border of the empire, the Beiwang fief. He arrived at the border's entrance with ease and prepared to leave on a meteor. Unexpectedly, the border's entrance was sealed. A large number of imperial guards guarded the entrance, not allowing anyone to enter or leave. Su Yu was shocked. The border of the Diyu Empire was sealed? He stopped a nearby peak overlord and asked, "May I ask when the border was sealed?" The other party saw that Su Yu was of the same level and gave him face. "Brother, you are not from the Beiwang fief, are you?" "I am from the imperial city." Su Yu had a bad feeling about this. "Oh, that explains it," the other party said. "A month ago, all the empire's entrances and exits were sealed. Not just the Beiwang fief, but the entrances and exits of the border fiefs were also sealed. You are in the empire, so you do not know about this." Su Yu's pupils dilated. A month ago, wasn't that when the Diyu Empire's ruins had begun? Something was wrong. Dongfang Xia was out hunting the double-crown emperor's fire dragon. He had not returned. Who had the right to order the entire Diyu Empire to be sealed? Su Yu had never expected that the borders of the Diyu Empire would actually be sealed. Looking at the Imperial Guard stance, it would be impossible for them to leave by bribing like they did the last time. Su Yu arrived at the Snow Lion fief and entered the black market with ease. Unlike the past, the black market was filled with an indescribable pressure. He could often see mysterious people with hesitant expressions or walking quickly, as if something big had happened. It looked like something big had happened in the Diyu Empire. He came to the information shop in the black market. The originally deserted place had now become the busiest area of the black market. People were squeezing in, lining up from the hall to the street. As expected, Su Yu's heart sank again. He was pondering whether he could enter the information shop as soon as possible when a charming voice suddenly sounded behind him. "Sixth Prince, why do you have the time to come to our black market? Are you here to raid our black market?" Su Yu looked back and recognized her. He hesitated for a moment, then cupped his fists. "So it's Maya Chengshin's Huan Mei, head shopkeeper." Huan Mei looked Su Yu up and down with a faint smile. She teased, I wouldn't dare. After all, I am someone from the black market. The sixth prince is now a member of the royal family of the Diyu Empire. Su Yu frowned slightly. Just say what you want. No need to beat around the bush. If he really wanted to destroy the black market, he would have done so long ago. How could Huan Mei not know this? It's so easy talking to the sixth prince, Huan Mei said with a smile. I have a deal with the sixth prince. He only wanted to leave the Diyu Empire as soon as possible. He had no interest in making a deal. Say it. He was patient. Sixth prince, help us with something. We will help you leave the Diyu Empire. Su Yu's pupils shrank. You must be joking. Why would I want to leave the Diyu Empire? Uft. Huan Mei covered her mouth as she laughed. Now, those who come to the black market to look for information have only one goal, to sneak out of the Diyu Empire. Su Yu's expression changed. He stared at her for a moment. Then why must I help you with something? No matter how I look at it, paying the information shop is safer. Huan Mei let out a strange laugh, lowering her voice. Sixth prince. What kind of sneak-out method can accommodate so many people without being detected? Chapter 1838. Su Yu's expression changed slightly as he looked at the sea of people queuing up. The method of smuggling did exist, but to smuggle so many people at the same time. To be precise, there should be more. The borders of the Diyu Empire had been sealed for more than a month, and there were so many people queuing up every day. The number of people in a month was astronomical. Anyone with a little bit of rationality could sense that something was wrong. With such a large number of smugglers, unless the imperial family personally opened back door, no one had the ability to smuggle them all out. It was very likely that the intelligence company would take the opportunity to make a fortune. After all, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was still a black market in the Dayu Empire. Coupled with the impending chaos of the Dayu Empire, it was not impossible for a situation to occur. Unreliable. After thinking for a moment, Suyu made a decision. The power of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce is overwhelming. Even though the Dayu Empire is suppressing you, you can secretly distribute the black market to all the fiefs. I don't know what you need my help with. Su Yu's eyes flashed. Huan Mei giggled. No matter how powerful we are not powerful enough to bribe the imperial family. Su Yu's eyes flashed. You want me to use the power of a prince? He was just the most ordinary sixth prince, and he did not control any imperial power. He could not think of anything worth befriending the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. It's so easy to talk to the sixth prince. We hope that the sixth prince can use your identity to take us to a place. After thinking for a moment, his pupils shrank. You want me to take you to the Imperial Palace? There was no place the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce could not go except the Imperial Palace. That's right. Huan Mei giggled. Does the Imperial Palace have anything to do with leaving the Dayu Empire? Huan Mei nodded. Of course it does. The Empire's borders are all sealed. There is only one way to leave this place. The Intercivilization Transportation Formation. What's that? It was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Enchantress said, to put it simply, it can allow a person to cross from one civilization to another. All it takes is a star stone and a civilization map. Star stone civilization map? Aren't you afraid that I will leave alone if you tell me in such detail? Since the Intercivilization Teleportation Formation is in the palace, it shouldn't be too difficult to search for it. Why do you have to look for it? The Intercivilization Teleportation Formation is in the withered earth vein under the palace. I can even give you the map. She took out a fragrant map from her bosom. The map clearly depicted the withered ground veins beneath the palace. It was exactly the same as the map in Fantasy Moon Longjuan's memory. It was a real map. The Intercivilization Teleportation Formation was clearly marked on the map. Suyu frowned slightly and asked in a serious voice, Are star stones and civilization maps rare? Phantom giggled and said, What do you think? Every civilization only has one star stone and civilization map at the beginning of its birth. Coincidentally, our Miaoqing Heaven collected all the treasures in the world, and among them we accidentally found a star stone and civilization map. It was left behind by a 3-star civilization after its collapse. Unless you can find the missing star stone and civilization map of the Dayu Empire, I'm afraid it'll be useless even if the 6th prince knows where the ancient formation is. The star stones and the civilization map of the Dayu Empire? Why were they missing? But that was no longer important. It was impossible to find them in a short time. In the entire Dayu Empire, only Miaoqing Heaven had the star stones and civilization map. How many people are there? Suyu asked. 100. It wasn't a small number, but it wasn't a large number either. It wouldn't be a problem to bring them into the Empire. You must have earned a lot of money from it, right? He didn't believe that the 100 people were all from Miaoqing Heaven. It's a trade secret, Huan Mei smiled proudly. Suyu didn't bother to ask further. As long as I'm one of the 100 people, I can bring you in. Otherwise, with his strength, he wasn't worried about being cheated. Don't worry, we are businessmen. We only seek wealth. There's no need to take unnecessary risks just for a place. That's for the best. When do we leave? Now. So urgent? It seemed like the situation in the Dayu Empire was very serious. Let's go then. Huan Mei packed up all the treasures Miaoqing Heaven had obtained in the past 5 years, then brought the 9 shopkeepers back to the imperial city with Su Yu. They disguised themselves as Su Yu's attendants and entered the imperial city together. With Su Yu's current prestige in the imperial family, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to bring 100 people into the palace. At the edge of the palace, at a junction with a seal, Huan Mei accurately found a passageway that led underground. It seemed to have been opened by someone and had been prepared for a long time. The abandoned veins of the earth were clearly visible. Su Yu pondered. May I ask you a question? Do you know why the Dayu Empire sealed off the borders? Huan Mei shook her head with a bitter smile. I thought that, as a prince, you would know some information. We don't know the specific reason, but we do know that it was very sudden. All the entrances and exits of the borders were sealed off at the same time. Such a big move must have been arranged by Dongfangxia. He must be targeting someone. For safety's sake, I'd better leave as soon as possible. Under Huan Mei's lead, they easily passed through the maze-like, withered earth veins. After a long time, they reached an unknown depth underground. Suddenly, they heard a lot of people talking. Su Yu's heart moved. He quietly took out the blindfold leaf and changed his appearance. Because of those discussions, he actually heard quite a few familiar voices, as well as some familiar words. Using the ancient Fuyao formation this time is our only hope of escaping. Yes, fortunately, the ancient Fuyao formation of the Dayu Empire has been preserved and not destroyed. Otherwise, we would have to put in a lot of effort to escape from the Dayu Empire. I really don't know what Dongfangxia is thinking. There is clearly an extremely threatening fire dragon that is wreaking havoc in the entire territory. Instead of trying to capture it, he suddenly sealed off the entire territory of the Dayu Empire. What is he trying to do? It doesn't matter. We have to leave the Dayu Empire no matter the price. I'm getting more and more uneasy. Suddenly, they also noticed the arrival of Huan Mei and the others. They all fell silent and became very vigilant. When they saw that it was Huan Mei, they all heaved a sigh of relief and greeted her with a smile. Huan Mei Palm, you're finally here. We thought that manager Huan Mei wouldn't come. Huan Mei smiled insincerely. I'm not as resourceful as all of you who can easily sneak into the palace. If I hadn't met a capable person, I don't know how long it would have taken for me to come in. She looked at Su Yu, who was disguised, but did not point it out. The crowd casually glanced at Su Yu and did not care. Instead, Su Yu sized them up. He did not expect nearly 100 people to be able to hide under the palace without anyone noticing. How did they get in? Even someone of Huan Mei's level needed a prince to lead the way. How did these people do it? Su Yu could not help but smile as he glanced at them. There were so many familiar faces, so many that it was unbelievable. The pair king of the Beixin fief, the injured Bei Wangqin, Bei Wangting, Bei Wangzhu, and a middle-aged heaven and earth divine warrior of the Beixin clan whom he had never seen before. He should be the current master of the Beixin family. They stayed in a corner, not saying a word. The entire Beixin family was preparing to escape from their fief. It seemed like they were worried that the news of the loss of the Beixin King Cauldron would be leaked and were preparing to flee. However, the sudden change in the Dayu Empire had caused all the border entrances and exits to be sealed overnight. They could only escape through the inter-civilization transportation portal. Looking at the rest of the people, there were still many familiar faces. The Corpse Emperor, Lan Yu, and the Emperor Corpse. The group of Corpse clan members led by them. They were preparing to release the evil dragon lord in the ruins of the Dayu Empire, allowing him to destroy the members of the royal family and Dongfangxia, so that the Corpse clan could invade the entire Dayu Empire. However, Su Yu had stumbled upon them. Man proposes, God disposes. Corpse Emperor, let's take our time. There is no need to be shaken by a momentary loss. What made Su Yu even more impressed was the white-clothed woman standing beside the Corpse Emperor. She was no stranger to Su Yu, the eldest princess of the Dayu Empire, Dongfang Shunlei. Last time, She had failed to assassinate Suyu with Luo Shenlei, so she had escaped and disappeared. She was here too. Suyu's surprise was unimaginable. As expected, the group of people standing behind her were all notorious criminals on the wanted list. They were all enemies of Suyu's Dayu Empire. Haha, they are all here. Suyu was secretly amused, but he had a bad feeling about this. Was this a coincidence? The people present were either the old enemies of the Dayu Empire, the corpse clan who threatened the Dayu Empire, or the traitors who wanted to betray the Dayu Empire. It was really a coincidence that they were all gathered here. Little brother, you look very unfamiliar. A middle-aged man who had always been alone walked out from among them. He had broad shoulders and a long scar on his forehead, but he did not have the temperament of a middle-aged man. Instead, he had a heroic air. Huan Mei said, "Scarface Xiong, he is from Maya Chengshan. It is normal that you have not seen him before." The middle-aged man called Scarface Xiong was also famous in the Dayu Empire. He was ranked 9th on the wanted list of criminals. In the past, he had repeatedly killed billions of living creatures at the borders of the empire, cultivating some kind of bloodthirsty divine technique. This person was listed as the 9th most dangerous criminal by the Dayu Empire and had been wanted for many years. This time, the entire Dayu Empire was sealed. He felt that something was wrong and was prepared to escape. "Oh, is that so? I am a frequent visitor of Maya Chengshan. Why have I not seen him before?" Scarface Xiong stared at Suyu, his eyes filled with suspicion. Huan Mei laughed angrily. "Aren't you being too paranoid? Breaking into the palace to activate the ancient Fuyao formation is a capital offense. Would I bring unreliable people to threaten my own safety?" Hearing this, Scarface Xiong nodded slightly. That was true. Of all the suspicious people, only Huan Mei was not. "All right, I apologize to little brother," Scarface Xiong said. "Now, is it time to activate the ancient Fuyao formation? Staying here any longer makes me feel uneasy." Scarface Xiong shrunk his neck, although the others did not rush him. Their eyes were filled with anxiety. "All right, there is no time to lose. Let's set off now." Huan Mei nodded. She arrived in front of a seemingly ordinary, withered wall and lightly struck it with her palm. At once, the entire wall shook violently, shattering a large amount of dust and gravel. Pieces of strange patterns appeared on the wall. A strange bright light flowed within the patterns, emitting a powerful energy that could resist the void. Chapter 1839. This is the ancient Fuyao formation. Suyu stared at it, his eyes flickering. He found it familiar. Then, Huan Mei carefully took out a black stone the size of a fist and a silver scroll. On the scroll were specks of light that looked like stars scattered everywhere, and there were lines connecting them. Seeing these two items, Suyu's heart skipped a beat. "It's that thing." His heart shook, but his expression did not change. His eyes quickly regained their calm. Huan Mei pasted the silver scroll on the wall. The lines immediately swirled, forming a vortex the size of a fist. It was the size of the black stone. She shouted, "Everyone, get within 100 feet of the ancient formation." Everyone approached. Suyu stood on the ancient Fuyao formation without batting an eyelid. Seeing that everyone was ready, Huan Mei pressed the star stone into the vortex. At once, the entire pattern released an intense light. Among the 100,000 earth veins, those that had not yet withered were rapidly drained of earth energy, rapidly withering. When Suyu saw this, he suddenly understood. It was no wonder that there were so many intersecting withered earth veins beneath the royal family. Every time the ancient Fuyao formation was used, it needed to absorb a massive amount of earth energy to activate. It must have been used several times to cause the withered earth veins to appear everywhere. But no matter what, they could finally leave. The pattern grew brighter and brighter, illuminating the entire world of withered earth veins. The powerful white light even penetrated the ground, reaching the sky above the royal family. Princess Rukin and the princes were all alarmed. The gray-robed emperor seemed to recall something after a moment of shock. His expression changed, and he let out a furious roar from deep within the palace. Who dares to touch the ancient Fuyao formation? He shattered the ground beneath his feet with a punch, revealing the withered earth veins. He desperately rushed in the direction of the ancient Fuyao formation, but the ancient Fuyao formation had already been activated. He could not stop it if he rushed over now. Huan Mei clutched the star stone tightly, her lips curling into a smile. Everyone, we will meet again if fate permits it. Ancient formation, activate. With a loud roar, everyone was enveloped by the white light and sent into the transportation. 1 breath passed, 2 breaths passed, 3 breaths passed, 10 breaths passed. But the white light was still in its original spot, with no intention of starting the transportation. What's going on? Why hasn't the transportation started? Strange. Manager Phantom, what are you doing? At this moment, the blinding white light began to dim, and the ancient Fuyao formation gradually stopped operating. A scene that caused everyone's expression to change drastically appeared in front of them. One of the phantoms was pointed at the wall by a finger. His head was penetrated, and his soul was destroyed. To think that an overlord of the pinnacle realm had died without a trace. Following the finger, the crowd turned to look at the owner of the finger, and their faces warped. Scarface Xiong, are you crazy? A fat man with a fierce face kicked him. However, just as he lifted his foot, the fatty suffered from some kind of terrifying power, and with a bang he turned into a mist of blood. Scarface Xiong's face was calm. He loosened his fingers, and Huan Mei's corpse slumped against the wall. He walked over with his hands clasped behind his back and gently grabbed the starstone that hadn't melted yet. Dao Ba Xiong, stop right there. A notorious criminal with an ominous glint flashed in his eyes. He picked up a huge saber and slashed at the waist. In the end, the moment the saber touched Scarface Xiong, the sinner turned into a cloud of blood mist just like the fatty from before. What's wrong with Scarface Xiong? What does he have that's so powerful? The pupils of a group of pinnacle overlord slayers shrank. Only the sovereign's expressions changed and their faces darkened. The Emperor Corpse's expression was grave, and he said in a low voice, "You're not Scarface Xiong. Who are you?" The real Scarface Xiong was at most in sovereigns. However, in the situation just now, he easily turned a pinnacle overlord into a cloud of blood mist. That wasn't something a sovereign's with a single crown could do. Scarface Xiong looked at him indifferently. With just a glance, the Emperor Corpse's eyes widened, and his body flew backward, smashing into the wall. A fist-sized hole appeared in his chest, and he opened his mouth to spit out a large amount of corpse energy. The Emperor Corpse was a true sovereign's with 2 crowns, and he was even one of the best. He was actually killed with just a glance. Everyone stared at Scarface Xiong, and their expressions changed. You are. The Emperor Corpse didn't die. He climbed up with difficulty, and his face was filled with shock. Scarface Xiong held the starstone, and with his hands clasped behind his back, he said calmly, "You used my Dayu Empire's ancient Fuyao formation, but you didn't even greet me, and you even asked who I was?" For a moment, there was dead silence. Everyone's eyes focused on Dao Scarface Xiong's body as waves of light flashed and his image changed. He was no longer Scarface Xiong, but an imposing middle-aged man wearing a yellow robe with 9 dragons on it and a crown on his head. He stared at the crowd with a faint smile. "Everyone, who do you think I am?" Among the crowd, a woman with a mouth full of fear and hatred shouted, "Dong! Feng! Xia!" He was the current emperor of the Dayu Empire, the most powerful emperor in the history of the empire. Dongfang Xia, who was chasing after the double-crowned fire dragon in the void, had actually sneaked into their midst. One should know that they had started to set up the ancient Fuyao formation a month ago. If he had sneaked in at that time, didn't it mean that someone else was chasing after the double-crowned fire dragon? Royal sister, long time no see. I missed you very much. Dongfang Xia clasped his hands behind his back and smiled. The one who screamed was naturally the empire's royal princess, Dongfang Xia's elder sister, Dongfang Shenlei. Her face was livid, and she said, "This was all your plan, wasn't it? Chasing after the double-crowned fire dragon was just your plan to lure the snake out of its hole." Dongfang Xia said calmly, "You could say that. After all, royal sister is very elusive. You would not easily show up unless there was a special opportunity. Coincidentally, a fire dragon appeared. So I thought that if I left the empire, royal sister would definitely show up and cause trouble. So, after you lured me out, you immediately sealed off all the borders of the empire. In fact, it was just a bluff to scare us away." Dongfang Shenlei said with hatred. From the beginning to the end, it was all Dongfang Xia's plot. Sealing off the borders was to make them have no choice but to use the ancient Fuyao formation to escape and capture her and all her henchmen. For this reason, Dongfang Xia did not hesitate to disguise himself as Dao Scarface Xiong and sneak into their midst. He had been waiting patiently until now. As you said, I originally only wanted to get rid of royal sister and her henchmen once and for all. Unexpectedly, it seemed that there was something interesting that had jumped into the trap. Dongfang Xia clasped his hands behind his back and smiled. Bei Xian's bloodline has betrayed me. What a surprise! The pair king, the current family master, Bei Wangchen, Bei Wangzhu, and Bei Wangting knelt down together. The pair king and the current family master looked bitter. "Greetings, your majesty." Dongfang Xia glanced at them indifferently. Then his eyes fell on the emperor corpse, the corpse emperor, and the rest of the people. His eyes were slightly cold. How dare a few corpse clan covet a 3-star civilization? You overestimate yourself. Then he looked at Su Yu with sharp eyes. The one who surprised me the most is you. He raised his head and sighed. My son, why did you betray me too? Or are you not my son at all? With a wave of his sleeve, the blinding leaf in Su Yu's hand disappeared and fell into Dongfang Xia's hand. Su Yu's real face was revealed. Su Yu! Su Yu! Su Yu! Exclamations of surprise resounded in the crowd at the same time. The bloodline of Bei Xian, Dongfang Shenlei, and the corpse clan were all shocked. This time, Dongfang Xia was surprised. "Oh, my son, you have quite a wide network. A group of people from all walks of life knows you." Now that things had come to this, Su Yu could only tell the truth. "I am not your son." Unexpectedly, Dongfang Xia flicked his sleeve and laughed. "I knew it a long time ago." "What?" Su Yu was stunned. Dongfang Xia's face darkened slightly. "How could I not know? My 6th son died many years ago. The land belongs to the king. Even if it is a fief, it is still my country. How could you hide it from me? When you appeared, I knew you were a fake." Su Yu was confused. "Then why? Of course I wanted to see who was behind you." It turned out that he had mistaken Su Yu for a threat to the empire. He had deliberately cast a long line to catch a big fish, hoping to lure out the person behind him. Unfortunately, the truth was not what he had imagined. "What surprised me was that you dared to collude with Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhan to deceive me just for Dayu. I am also surprised by your courage." Dongfang Xia laughed. Su Yu was silent. He had underestimated the power of the 3-crown emperor and the control a monarch had over the empire. Everything about him was in Dongfang Xia's eyes. "Since I have been caught by you, I am at your disposal." Su Yu simply spread out his hands. Unless he died together with the 3-crown emperor, he would not be able to resist. Unexpectedly, Dongfang Xia smiled mysteriously. "Of course I will punish you, and I will punish you well. But not now. You stand aside." Su Yu stood to one side, quietly observing the situation. The descendants of Beixin stand aside. The descendants of Beixin stood aside nervously. Now, only the Corpse Clan and Dongfang Divine Lei's forces were left, as well as some scattered criminals. As for you, Dai, Dongfang Xia said calmly. As soon as the word Dai fell, the crowd immediately exploded into a mist of blood. Nearly 100 people were killed in an instant. Only the emperor corpse, the corpse emperor, Lan Yu, and Dongfang Divine Lei survived. The rest were all dead. However, all of them were seriously injured. Dongfang Divine Lei's body was festering, and she was only one step away from death. Dongfang Xia, you will die a horrible death. Dongfang Divine Lei, who was in despair, attacked Dongfang Xia. Dongfang Xia snorted coldly. He could crush her like an ant. In the past, this ant had been hiding, and he could not do anything about it. Now he could crush her with a finger. However, Dongfang Divine Lei's attack suddenly changed direction and turned into a grab. Su Yu, surrender. Su Yu was the only person that Dongfang Xia had his eyes on, so he was the most suitable hostage. Chapter 1840. Dongfang Xia put his hands behind his back and didn't try to stop her. Instead, he smiled meaningfully. As Su Yu saw this, he knew very well that his true abilities were most likely being grasped by him. Sighing, Su Yu took out the Tianyi Bao and shot an arrow at Dongfang Xia. Chi! The black light pierced through the sky and nailed Dongfang Shenlei to the ground. Dongfang Shenlei's body and divine soul, which were riddled with holes, were destroyed on the spot. One arrow for one emperor. Seeing this, the emperor's corpse, the corpse emperor, and Lan Yu had complicated expressions on their faces. Dongfang Shenlei, who used to be a nonentity, had now become an existence comparable to an emperor. How is this possible? Dongfang Shenlei screamed in disbelief as her soul was destroyed. Only one person said, "It is impossible for her to be captured by you." Bei Wangqin stared at Su Yu with a complicated expression. He thought he would never see this man again. Unexpectedly, he met him again. Haha, not bad. Dongfang Xia smiled faintly and turned to look at the emperor's corpse, the corpse emperor, and Lan Yu. My son, get rid of them as well. The emperor's corpse was seriously injured. His real strength had fallen to the level of a single crown emperor. The corpse emperor was still at the peak of the single crown emperor, and Lan Yu was not worth mentioning. Swish! The emperor's corpse stood in front of the corpse emperor and growled. To kill the corpse emperor, you have to get past me first. He had the air of a loyal protector of his master. If Su Yu was asked to kill the descendants of Bei Xan, he would be a bit reluctant to do so. The corpse clan. Haha, did they deserve to be loyal? They would eat people at every turn, and if it was light, they would kill. Everywhere they passed, living beings would be plunged into misery and suffering, and all living things would be destroyed. Everything they did was dark, bloody, and heinous. Did they deserve to be pitted? Arrow! Su Yu shouted. A stream of light fell on his palm. He quickly put the bowstring on and aimed at the emperor's corpse. The emperor's corpse, who used to dominate the constellation sea, was now forced into a corner by Su Yu. It was sad and ridiculous. Su Yu, do you think I am afraid of you? Swish! Su Yu loosened his fingers, and the stream of light shot toward its head. However, the emperor's corpse was still the emperor's corpse. It could kill a single crown emperor with a single blow. However, the emperor's corpse grabbed the stream of light with his palm. An unparalleled force pushed the emperor corpse back and also shattered a large chunk of the emperor corpse's palm. He only managed to stabilize his body after the arrow dissipated. However, he still managed to block Su Yu's attack. That's all you've got. The emperor's corpse laughed contemptuously. The fact that he was able to withstand the blow despite being seriously injured was undoubtedly a mockery of Su Yu. Su Yu replied calmly, "Is that so?" A spatial blade suddenly shot out from the arrow and sliced across the neck of the emperor's corpse. The emperor corpse was shocked and hurriedly dodged to the side. However, he was still a little too late. Half of his neck was severed. Chi! Dense corpse energy surged out and quickly healed the wound, reconnecting the head that was about to be separated from the body. This was why the corpse race was difficult to deal with. Unless their heads were chopped off, they wouldn't die no matter what. However, since Suyu had made his move, it would surely be a fatal strike. He held the arrow tightly in his hand and shot out dozens of hidden spatial blades. Puchi! Puchi! After a series of random shots that covered the sky and covered the earth, not only was the head of the Emperor corpse cut off, but it was also completely annihilated. The Emperor corpse! The corpse Emperor's eyes were wide open as he roared. His pair of bloodshot eyes stared at Suyu as if he wanted to devour him. You, why is it always you? The plan to conquer the Sea of Constellations had been ruined by the betrayal of Zhuji and the other corpse emperors because of him. The plan to conquer the Dayu Empire's civilization had also been ruined because of him. The evil dragon lord could not be released. Somehow, it was as if Suyu was his natural nemesis, always restraining him. In the end, even the emperor corpse that he relied on the most and was most loyal to died in the hands of Suyu. His grievance and anger could only be imagined. After the Sea of Constellations, you should have understood that you should have kept your distance when you saw me. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are today, Suyu said calmly. With a wave of his hand, he summoned the arrow. He put the bowstring on and gently aimed at the corpse emperor. The corpse emperor's eyes were full of grief and indignation, as if he was a hero at the end of his road. Of course, that was his own opinion. In Suyu's eyes, he was a criminal. His fingers loosened, and the flowing light mercilessly pierced the corpse emperor's head. As a single crown emperor, he had no resistance against the Tianyi Bao. Puchi, his head was pierced on the spot. Under normal circumstances, he should have died immediately. However, unexpectedly a large amount of black light burst out from the pierced head. A pitch-black bead floated out from the head. The bead contained a terrifying power, almost comparable to the Path Master's Buddhist Sarara. Dongfang Xia, who was smiling calmly, suddenly froze. Divine bead of the Dao corpse, who are you? As he spoke, he grabbed the air and suppressed the black bead. However, the corpse energy contained in the black bead was earth-shattering. With a slight tremble, it shook off Dongfang Xia's suppression. At the same time, the bead descended with a dense corpse energy, enveloping the corpse emperor. The bead rotated casually and cut through the barrier of the Dayu Empire, revealing Senior Sister Nihility outside. She took him with her and escaped into the void. Before leaving, the corpse emperor did not forget Lan Yu and grabbed her. "Where are you going?" Dongfang Xia was shocked and immediately attacked the bead. However, the bead did not even tremble. It easily blocked the attack. In the dense corpse energy, the corpse emperor's bloodshot eyes were full of hatred. "Suyu, the Dayu Empire, I swear that if I don't destroy you, I will never be an emperor. Just wait and see." With a furious roar, the bead took him away and disappeared without a trace. Dongfang Xia was left behind with a gloomy face. He never expected that one of the corpse clan members he accidentally captured would have the divine bead of the Dao corpse. The so-called Dao corpse, as the name suggested, was the existence of the Path Master of the corpse clan. The divine bead of the Dao corpse was the crystallization of a lifetime that could only be condensed by a Path Master. This creature, who was merely at the level of an emperor, was most likely a strong Path Master when he was alive and suddenly resurrected after his death. However, he had not inherited all the power of his previous life and was only a single crown emperor. If Suyu's arrow hadn't pierced through his head and triggered the crisis, the divine bead of the Dao corpse might not have appeared. Thinking that the Dayu Empire had provoked a Dao corpse, Dongfang Xia's mood became gloomy. Suyu took back the arrow with surprise and a hint of realization in his eyes. The faceless Buddha used his lifetime Path Master's Buddhist Sarara to suppress the corpse emperor. It was not groundless. He had doubts before. Although the corpse emperor was powerful, he was not worthy of being suppressed by a Path Master. At first, he thought it was because of his identity as the corpse emperor. Now he understood that the corpse emperor had been a path master in his previous life. That was why the faceless Buddha suppressed him at all costs, for fear that he would bring chaos to the world in the future. Compared to Dongfang Xia's worries, Su Yu's state of mind was much calmer. He had provoked more than one path master. He was not afraid of being bitten when there were too many of them. So what if there was one more? Moreover, the corpse emperor's current strength was still far from that of a path master. What was there to be afraid of? Perhaps it was because he had figured this out. Dongfang Xia's face gradually softened, but it was still a little gloomy. He glanced at Su Yu and Beixin. He looked at the former meaningfully, while the latter frowned deeply. "It's your turn." Dongfang Xia stared at them. Affected by the corpse emperor, he was in a bad mood. He snorted coldly. "Betraying the Dayu Empire is a great crime. Be prepared. Follow me back to the Empire." Beixin's people were nervous. Not killing them on the spot did not necessarily mean that they were spared. It could also be a warning to others, and that they would be executed in public. Su Yu hesitated for a moment. He looked at the ancient Fuyao formation, which was gradually dimming, and quietly followed Dongfang Xia out of the earth vein. Back at the palace, everything was the same as before. The princess's mansion was still bustling with noise and excitement. Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhan had not escaped yet. They had no idea that Su Yu had left for several days. Su Yu smiled bitterly when he returned. Fate really made fools of him. Soon, at the Heavenly Harmony Palace, Dongfang Xia reviewed memorials all year round and handled state affairs. The first prince, second prince, third prince, fourth prince, fifth prince, and Princess Rukin were all present. They were both surprised and pleasantly surprised. They were pleasantly surprised that their father had returned. All the conspiracies and plots against the empire in the past had been swept away, which made them feel very relieved. They were surprised that their father was not hunting down the double-crowned fire dragon. Why did he suddenly appear in the palace without any movement? "Welcome back, father," the princes said in unison. Only Su Yu, who was standing opposite them, did not address them as such, which made the princes secretly speculate. Before they arrived, Su Yu was in the palace, and the atmosphere between him and Dongfang Xia was very strange. "How have you been, my son?" Dongfang Xia asked with a smile, looking them up and down. The first prince raised his head and puffed out his chest. "Thank you for your concern, father. We are very well." "That's good," Dongfang Xia said. "The Dayu Empire has been troubled recently. Many hidden hostile forces have taken the opportunity to stir up trouble. I am relieved that you are safe." Princess Rukin said with a smile, "Father, why did you suddenly come back? The gray-robed emperor said you were still on your way." Dongfang Xia chuckled, and his gaze toward Princess Rukin was exceptionally kind. "I came back early to take the opportunity to deal with a group of hostile forces, so I did not inform you. For example, Princess Rukin was the youngest and the most favored by Dongfang Xia. She was the only one who dared to ask such a question. For example, Dongfang Divine Lei. The prince's expressions changed, and they were pleasantly surprised. To the royal family, Dongfang Divine Lei was tantamount to a malignant tumor, which made them restless day and night. Over the years, there had been countless vicious attacks against the royal family, and most of them were planned by Dongfang Divine Lei. The most sensational incident was the kidnapping of the 3 imperial concubines by Xianyue Langjun, which had become an indelible humiliation to the royal family. Now that she had been killed, it was really a pleasant surprise. The heavy stone that had accumulated in their hearts for many years suddenly disappeared. Princess Rukin was startled, and she was a little absent-minded. Dead. Dead just like that? The enemy, whom she had tried to kill even at the cost of fighting for the position of crown prince, had died just like that? A surreal feeling lingered in her mind. Of course, this was done with the help of your 6th brother. Dongfang Divine Lei was also killed by the 6th prince himself. The princes looked at Su Yu again, their gazes extremely complicated. On the one hand, they were jealous of Su Yu's abilities, which far surpassed them in all aspects. On the other hand, they had to admit that he was indeed outstanding. He had made a name for himself in the ruins of the Dayu Empire, and then he had besieged the great enemy of the royal family with their father. All these achievements could not be achieved by jealousy alone. Princess Rukin's face shone brightly when she heard that. He was really a great person in her life. He had helped her seize the position of crown prince, and he had also helped her kill her mother. However, she was surprised that Suyu had gone to help her father. Princess Rukin knew his background better than anyone else. Besides, your sixth brother also killed the Corpse Clan with his own hands and led all the potential hostile forces of the Dayu Empire to one place, so that I could wipe them all out in one go. Dongfang Xia chuckled. I will draft a decree and announce it to the world. Chapter 1841. It was clearly Dongfang Xia's own plan to lure all the hostile forces into the trap and capture them all. Su Yu had only brought along Huan Mei. Now he was pushing all the blame onto Su Yu. He did not think this was a good thing. There were bound to be remaining hostile forces, and they would definitely vent their hatred on Su Yu. Moreover, that Huan Mei had an extraordinary identity, as she was from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce might not blame Su Yu for her death. Dongfang Xia looked at Su Yu with a faint smile, then retracted his gaze. In addition, there is a group of traitors from the Empire. Bring them here. Under the watch of a group of guards, the core members of Beixin's bloodline were all brought into the hall. The first prince's pupils shrank, and the other princes were also shocked. Princess Rukin covered her mouth, unable to contain her surprise. How many dynasties had it been since a king had betrayed them? Once this was announced, it would be a historic event that would shake the empire. What was most unbelievable was that Bei Wangqin had displayed outstanding talent. Sooner or later, he would become the most powerful fief in the empire. Bei Wangqin might even break through the 3 crown emperors and become a powerful national guardian. It was unimaginable that such a family had betrayed them. My sons, what do you think I should do? Dongfang Xia asked calmly. For a moment, the princes were silent. There was only one way to betray the empire, and that was to wipe out the entire clan. What did their father mean by asking them for their opinions? Did he not want to kill Beixin's bloodline and wanted them to find a way out? Or was he trying to test their attitude towards Beixin's bloodline? To be honest, the princes were inextricably linked to their fiefs, and this was even more evident during the fight for the Great Yu's relics. Behind every prince, there was a conferred king who supported them. Beixin's support was undoubtedly the first prince. It was the first prince's turn to be in a difficult position. Dongfang Xia was unfathomable. His every word and action often had a deeper meaning. It would be a disaster if he made a slight mistake. He thought quickly, and a moment later, his eyes shot out a cold light. Father, I think they should be dealt with according to the laws of the empire. There was a reason for his answer. No matter what his father, the emperor, thought, he insisted on handling the matter according to the law and was impartial. Even if his father wanted to keep Beixin's bloodline alive, it could not be said that the great imperial prince's opinion was wrong. On the other hand, if his imperial father wanted to test the attitude of him and Beixin's bloodline, and if he pleaded for leniency and angered his imperial father's suspicions, then he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Hearing this, many people from Beixin's bloodline stared at the first prince. Bei Wangqin gazed deeply at him and heaved a long sigh, but he didn't say a word. The north-gazing Pearl's beautiful face lost all color. Unable to believe that the first one to request for severe punishment would be him, her future husband. Dongfang Xia's face was filled with an unfathomable expression. My son, I remember that you are engaged to the north-pronged Pearl, right? What engagement? The eldest imperial prince was secretly resentful. The north-gazing pearl and the sixth imperial brother had been together for a long time, so he couldn't do anything about it. Imperial father, it is precisely because of this that I should adhere to the laws of the country and not care about the personal feelings between a man and a woman, he replied righteously. Dongfang Xia nodded slightly. What about Hui Ren? Hui Ren was the name of the second prince. When his name was mentioned, the second prince said expressionlessly, I agree with the first brother's decision. The third prince, the fourth prince, and the fifth prince stood out one after another, expressing their agreement with the first prince. No one was willing to express their opinions carelessly and anger their imperial father. What about Rukin? Dongfang Xia asked. Princess Rukin was even more cautious. She had worked hard to become the first in the fight for the nation's fate, and the crown prince was in sight. If there was a slight mistake, all her previous efforts would be in vain. Imperial father, I also agree with the first brother's opinion. Anyway, she had never interacted with Beixin's bloodline. To be exact, Emperor Wuhan had once visited them to rope them in, but was mercilessly rejected by Beixin's bloodline. She didn't need to take the risk to plead for Beixin's bloodline. 5 princes and 1 princess unanimously agreed to exterminate Beixin's bloodline. The people from Beixin's bloodline looked bitter. Beixin's bloodline was going to end here. No matter how much they had contributed to the dynasty, and no matter how deep their relationship with the first prince was, when they made a mistake, everything was equal to 0. Dongfang Xia's expression was unchanged, and he remained silent. Everyone knew that he was contemplating and making his final decision. He could decide the life and death of Beixin's bloodline with a single thought. Beixin's bloodline no longer held any hope. How could there be any hope when there was no one to speak up for them? As Dongfang Xia's eyes gradually turned cold, he had already made a decision in his heart. It was the worst kind. But just as he was about to speak, Suyu, who had been silent all this time, slowly said, Imperial father, I think we can be lenient. The 5 princes and princesses turned to look at the source of the voice and were surprised. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the murderous intent in Dongfang Xia's eyes at the last moment. He did not want to leave Beixin's bloodline alive. Su Yu's objection was, in fact, going against his imperial father's wishes. If his imperial father was angry, the consequences would be unimaginable. But hearing Su Yu's words, the cold light in Dongfang Xia's eyes slowly faded, and he wore a faint smile. Oh, why? According to the laws of our empire, only death awaits those who betray us. This is the only way to intimidate the entire territory. Su Yu spoke frankly with assurance. First of all, only me, my brothers, my sister, and my imperial father know about the betrayal of Beixin's bloodline. If we did not say it, who would know? Could it be those traitors who are already dead? Secondly, there is a reason for the betrayal of Beixin's bloodline. I believe that my imperial father, who controls the entire territory, must know about it. He pointed out. Dongfang Xia smiled faintly. Continue. Their betrayal was not a matter of loyalty. They were forced to do so, and they had a forgivable original intention. Finally, the Dayu Empire has been promoted to a 3-star civilization, and it is the time to govern the neighboring civilizations. It is the time to use people. Beixin's bloodline has guarded the borders for many years, and they have made great contributions. How can we easily erase their contributions? Why not keep them and let them continue to serve us? After listening to his words, the people of Beixin's bloodline stared at Su Yu in disbelief. Even the north-gazing pearl felt like she was dreaming. In her heart, Su Yu was the archenemy of the Beixin bloodline and the sinner who had harmed her deeply. The north-gazing pearl resented him. However, when Beixin's bloodline was in trouble, the one who helped them was not the first prince, whom she had a close relationship with and was engaged to. It was the man she hated so much. She did not understand why Su Yu had done this. Only by cutting off Beixin's bloodline would no one leak the news that he had stolen the Beixin royal tripod. What he had done had no benefits. Bei Wangqin was stunned. He had imagined which prince would plead for the Beixin bloodline, but Su Yu was the only one he had not imagined. Dongfang Xia looked at Su Yu quietly. He had even known that his own son had died long ago. Moreover, the disappearance of the Beixin royal tripod, which was related to the fate of the Dayu Empire, he had already known. The reason he had asked for the opinions of all the princes and princesses, but not Su Yu, was that he knew that Su Yu would kill him out of guilt. Who knew that Su Yu would take the initiative to plead for the Beixin bloodline? Dongfang Xia looked at Su Yu meaningfully. He realized that he had the world under his control, and his sons were firmly in his grasp. Only Su Yu gave him an unfathomable feeling. He even suspected that if he wanted to kill Su Yu, he would have to pay an unimaginable price. "My son, do you mean what you said?" Dongfang Xia asked calmly, his face expressionless. Su Yu nodded slightly. "Every word is sincere." The Beixin bloodline was implicated by him, and he could not sit back and do nothing. Dongfang Xia was silent for a long while, then nodded slightly and said, "Draft the decree." The eunuch beside him immediately raised his pen. "Prince Beixin has protected the country. He will be rewarded with 10,000 divine stones and a beautiful concubine. Bei Wangchen is talented and will be promoted to the commander of the Imperial Guards." Hearing this, the 5 princes and princesses' faces changed drastically. Their father had changed his intention to kill them and rewarded them generously. Not only did he destroy the Beixin bloodline, but he also rewarded them to appease them. All because of Su Yu's suggestion. They knew their father well. He was headstrong and rarely listened to the opinions of others. This was definitely the first time they had seen something like this. How much did he trust Su Yu? The Beixin bloodline felt like they were in a dream. Prince Beixin was pleasantly surprised and suddenly kowtowed. "I am guilty. Speak." "The Beixin royal cauldron is lost." The 5 princes and Princess Rukin were all shocked. That was the destiny of the Dayu Empire. Once it was lost, the foundation of the empire would be shaken, and the empire would be in turmoil. Even the death of his whole family would not be enough punishment. "I know." However, Dongfang Xia said calmly. How did he know? It was the Beixin bloodline's turn to be stunned. When did he know? Prince Beixin said in fear and trepidation, "Your Majesty, please punish me." Dongfang Xia laughed lightly. "It's just a cauldron. It doesn't matter if it's lost." Many people were dumbfounded. The cauldron that was said to stabilize the destiny of the Dayu Empire was just a cauldron in Dongfang Xia's eyes. He looked at the crowd and said calmly, "How could a few small cauldrons contain the destiny of the Dayu Empire? The real destiny of the nation is here." He pointed at himself and then at the crowd. The crowd did not understand what he meant. Dongfang Xia said with emotion, "The cauldron of destiny was forged by the first emperor, and it stabilized the destiny of the empire in different places. However, how many times do you think the empire is now? 1,000 times, 10,000 times. The original Dayu Empire was even worse than the constellation C. However, the destiny of the nation in the cauldron has never increased." Dongfang Xia's gaze was profound. The destiny of the empire is never decided by the destiny of the nation. It's decided by me, my sons, and all the ministers. You are the real destiny of the Dayu Empire. His words made the crowd's blood boil. The empire was what it was today because of them, not because of those dead cauldrons. Therefore, it's no big deal if it's lost. The destiny of the Dayu Empire will not weaken because of a small cauldron. Instead, it will grow stronger because of everyone's efforts. Hearing this, the crowd kowtowed and shouted, "Long live the emperor!" Dongfang Xia waved his hand. "You may rise. Continue drafting the decree." It's not over yet?" The crowd then realized that the drafting of the decree was interrupted. The north-gazing pearl is virtuous and virtuous. The sixth prince's character and martial arts are top-notch. The two of them will get married within 10 days, and the whole nation will celebrate. The crowd was shocked. Even the north-gazing pearl was rewarded. The entire Beishin bloodline was rewarded. Wait, what was rewarded? Chapter 1842. The faces of Princess Rooken and the princes were full of doubt, shock, and confusion. Did father say something wrong? The north-facing pearl and the sixth prince? Was the north-facing pearl the first prince's fiancé? Moreover, why with the sixth prince? Was there a connection between them? Su Yu was also stunned. He did not expect Dongfang Xia to bring out such an imperial edict. The north-facing pearl also froze on the spot. She stared at Su Yu in shock and confusion. The engagement between her and the first prince had existed many years ago. Could Dongfang Xia have forgotten about it? The first prince's expression kept changing. He was also puzzled. He said hesitantly, "Father, the north-facing pearl is engaged to me. I'm afraid it's inappropriate to give her such a reward." He had no feelings for the north-facing pearl, so he would not feel bad if he killed her. But he could not tolerate the fact that his woman was engaged to someone else. In the eyes of outsiders, wouldn't it mean that the first prince was incompetent and allowed his fiancée to be taken away by someone else? Everyone pricked up their ears to listen. They also felt that this imperial edict was made without rhyme or reason. "Oh, how did your engagement come about? Do you have any impression of it?" Dongfang Xia asked calmly. The first prince bowed and said, "I remember. When I broke through to the divine warrior of heaven and earth, you praised me and asked me what I wanted. I said I wanted to marry the north-facing pearl, the young princess of Beishin's bloodline." Father nodded in agreement. The engagement between them was actually based on interests. In order to win over Beishin's bloodline and bribe Bei Wangqin, the first prince decided to marry Beishin's bloodline. In this way, the two parties were tied together. Beishin's bloodline had to fully support the first prince's ascension to the throne. For many years, Bei Wangqin had been secretly recruiting people for the first prince to use in the relic of the Great Yu for this reason. Dongfang Xia nodded slowly. "Well, what happened after that?" The first prince was startled. "That's what happened after that." Dongfang Xia's tone became unfathomable. "What I'm asking is, did you issue any imperial edicts after that?" "No." He only nodded in agreement, but did not say anything after that. The first prince did not pursue the matter further. "No, but it was father who personally agreed to it," the eldest imperial prince argued. Dongfang Xia said indifferently, "Since there isn't, your engagement is just a verbal arrangement. It doesn't count." The eldest imperial prince was unwilling to give up and said, "Father, please reconsider. Although there is no imperial edict, everyone in the world knows. If you decree my fiancé to be betrothed to someone else, wouldn't it become a joke in the world? The reputation of the royal family will also be affected." A sharp light flashed in Dongfang Xia's eyes, and his tone became slightly cold. "Are you threatening me?" The hearts of Princess Rooken and the princes trembled. Their imperial father was angry. The great prince could not help but shrink his neck. However, if he really shrank back now, he would never be able to raise his head again. "Imperial father, please reconsider." He kowtowed heavily and pleaded. Dongfang Xia's eyes turned cold. After a moment of silence, he said, "Fine, we will give you a chance. If you still can't keep the north-facing pearl, then it will be your own fault. If you try to stop us again..." A trace of killing intent could be felt clearly. "Thank you, father," the eldest prince said. He had finally won a glimmer of hope. Dongfang Xia said, "The north-gazing pearl." "Yes, your highness." The north-gazing pearl hurriedly kowtowed, her heart uneasy. Between a man and a woman, mutual consent is important. Let me ask you, between the first prince and the sixth prince, if you had to choose a fiancé, Who would you choose? Answer truthfully. The eldest prince looked at her fervently and kept signaling her with his eyes. His eyes were exceptionally gentle, no longer as indifferent as before. This time, the north-gazing Pearl was in an awkward position. She had never liked the eldest prince. She had only listened to her father's orders and sacrificed herself for the interests of the family. But as for Suyu, she had hated him to the core. Although her hatred had lessened, it was still too much to say that she liked him. Between the two of them, she did not like either of them. What made her smile bitterly was that Dongfang Xia would only allow her to choose one of the two. How would she dare to negotiate in front of Dongfang Xia? Not long ago, Dongfang Xia's tangible killing intent could not be faked. Without Suyu's plea, they would not be in the situation where they were being rewarded now. Their entire clan might have been wiped out, their heads rolling. She raised her head, her eyes darting back and forth between the eldest prince and Suyu. The eldest prince's ardent gaze was completely different from the merciless gaze that had just called for the annihilation of their entire clan. This made the north-gazing Pearl feel disgusted. She looked at Suyu, only to see Suyu frowning and staring at her. He kept shaking his head and mouthing, "I am not interested in you. Do not choose me." North-gazing Pearl, do you think I want to be loyal? Ever since they first met, this man had never made her happy. She had suffered at his hands time and time again. Now he was even speaking in a tone that belittled her, which really made her furious. To be honest, she instinctively leaned towards the eldest prince. For a woman to have two partners, it would not be good for her reputation. But seeing Su Yu's expression and thinking of the curse that had not been lifted, she could not help but feel angry. She turned her head and said to Dongfang Xia, "I choose the sixth prince, Dongfang Yu." The eldest prince's face was ashen. Su Yu's expression was also ugly. This woman, couldn't she have continued to be the eldest prince's concubine? Why did she have to change her target? He had a feeling that Dongfang Xia must have had a plan to bestow marriage between the two of them. Dongfang Xia's expression softened. "So you like him?" North-gazing Pearl bit her lips and nodded. "Yes, I like him very much." "Oh, why don't you tell me how you like him?" Ugh. It was north-gazing Pearl's turn to be restless. She had only said it casually and had not thought much about it. But since the monarch had asked, she could only brace herself and make up a lie. When the sixth prince first went to the Sea of Constellations to train, he attacked me due to a misunderstanding. And then we got to know each other through a fight, and I gradually developed feelings for the sixth prince. Suyu was dumbfounded. This woman was good at making up lies. At that time, she had clearly been captured by Suyu as a hostage. It was good enough that she did not strangle Suyu to death. She had gradually developed feelings for him. Haha, interesting. Dongfang Xia laughed. So, you have developed feelings for him over time, and you can't extricate yourself from it? North-gazing Pearl's heart twitched. To be precise, she hated him so much that she could not extricate herself. Every time the curse was triggered, she would be ravaged in her dreams. When she woke up, her hatred for Suyu would deepen. A lie often required thousands of lies to cover it up. Yes, I can't extricate myself from it. North-gazing Pearl braced herself and answered. Dongfang Xia said playfully, "Is that so? Why can't I see it? I have seen many lovers, but it is the first time I have seen someone with such clear eyes and no feelings. Are you lying to me? You know the crime of deceiving the monarch. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because the sixth prince is pleading for you." This was what it meant by the monarch's power was unpredictable. Just now he had wanted to reward them, and now he was going to turn against them. Père Duke, North Exan Duke, North Wangqin, and North Gazing Pavilion were all shocked. North Gazing Pearl's beautiful face turned pale, and her face was full of panic. She was about to be seen through. North Exan Duke knew that if he did not act decisively, he would be in trouble. He could only put on an old face and said awkwardly, "Your Majesty! To be honest, my daughter does not want to eat or drink with the sixth prince, and she is deeply in love with him." "Is that so? Why can't I see that?" Dongfang Xia sneered. Duchess Beixin blushed and said, "Your Majesty, I won't hide it from you. Ever since my daughter fell in love with the sixth prince, she has been suffering from a strange illness. Every time she acts up, she will dream of having sex with the sixth prince." North Gazing Pearl's face turned red immediately. At this moment, she wished she could find a hole to hide in and never come out again. How could this be? She had found the divine herb, and she would be able to bid farewell to this shameful curse in a month's time. But she made a wrong decision, and her father had to use this matter to cover up his lie. She regretted not acting so impulsively, and choosing the first prince wouldn't have so many problems. For a moment, the benevolence hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Princess Rookin blinked and looked at North Gazing Pearl in a daze. She mumbled, "What do you mean by having sex with him and having sex with him? Why do my royal brothers look so weird?" In the originally quiet hall, his mumbling was amplified by several times. Even Dongfang Xia, who was sitting on the dragon throne, could hear it clearly. Moreover, the North Gazing Pearl was so close at hand. Her face turned even redder, and her whole body stiffened as if she had been frozen. Prince Beixin sighed secretly. "Daughter, I'm sorry. I can only let you suffer." Pear King, North Gazing, and North Gazing were all blushing and embarrassed. The first prince was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Although he had already known about it, he was still resentful to hear it announced in public. After a moment of silence, Dongfang Xia coughed awkwardly. "Oh, I see. I didn't expect North Gazing Pearl to be so deeply in love with my son." He turned to look at the first prince. "You heard it all? What else do you have to say?" The first prince was motionless like a wooden statue. Withdrawing his gaze, Dongfang Xia said, "Since North Gazing Pearl is so sincere, I will grant your wish and betroth you to my son." North Gazing Pearl had an urge to cry, "You were the one who forced me to marry Suyu." But why did it sound like I was the one who begged to marry Suyu? Those who didn't know better would think that North Gazing Pearl abandoned the first prince and went to the sixth prince. However, she couldn't refute any of this. She had to sincerely thank the emperor for his kindness. "Good. It's decided then. In 10 days, you two will get married, and I will host it personally." At that moment, the eunuch had finished drafting the imperial edict. "Send out the summons. Announce it to the whole territory. Everyone must know that my sixth prince is getting married." "Yes." An imperial edict was sent to Beixin. At the same time, the news about the sixth prince and the North Gazing Pearl, spread like wildfire. In just a few days, the news had spread like wildfire. From the people in the villages to the powerful officials in the imperial city, everyone was talking about it. "Have you heard? The North Gazing Pearl, risked her life to beg to marry the sixth prince. She almost angered His Majesty and caused a great disaster." Chapter 1843. That's strange. I also heard that North Wangju was originally engaged to the first prince, but ever since she met the sixth prince, she was so shocked that she couldn't eat or drink. The Beixin family came to His Majesty and begged for a decree. His Majesty only agreed to it because of the Beixin family's contributions. He even rewarded the royal family for this. On the streets of the imperial city, in a luxurious carriage, the North Gazing Pearl's cheeks flushed as she listened. She stomped her feet and gnashed her teeth, saying, "Which rumor monger started this nonsense? How did it spread like this? When did she plead? Since when did he seek death and hang himself?" What was even more ridiculous was that the whole family of the Beixin family came to the imperial city to plead. It was ridiculous. Someone actually believed it. Sister, you can't blame others. North Wangting, who was beside her, laughed. You chose the sixth prince. To be honest, grandfather, father, and big brother were all very surprised. They thought you were really interested in the sixth prince. North Wangju's face turned red. I couldn't stand his arrogant attitude. Didn't he just save the Beixin family? What right did he have to look down on me? He even mouthed to me and said he wasn't interested in me. He told me not to choose him. Brother Wangting, don't you think he's too much? North Wangting couldn't help laughing, but he stared deeply into her eyes. He is indeed too much. But I'm thinking, when will our calm, steady, and intelligent sister lose her composure and act on her emotions? I didn't. North Wangju hurriedly defended herself. North Wangting's eyes gradually sharpened, as if he could see through her heart. Is that so? Then have you noticed that when did your eyes rarely linger on Big Brother? North Wangju's expression froze. Second brother, what do you mean? You know what I mean. North Wangting said indifferently. I can see your abnormal feelings for Big Brother. I wanted to stop you, but you've changed. This is all thanks to Su Yu's appearance and that curse. North Wangju felt as if she had stepped on air and fallen into a bottomless cliff. The secret, she thought, only she knew had been seen through by her low-key second brother. Little sister, be at ease as the sixth prince's bride. I've met him before, or rather, he once saved my life. I know him better than any of you, North Wangting said. You might still be guessing at the sixth prince's goal and plot in saving our North Xian branch. But I think he just doesn't want to see our Beixin faction get implicated because of him. He is a man of righteousness. If you really marry him, you will be 100 times better than the first prince. The north-gazing Pearl was stunned, speechless. I really like him. The north-gazing Pearl was perplexed. If it wasn't for her second brother mentioning it, she wouldn't have realized that she rarely paid attention to Bei Wangchen. The feelings she had hidden in her heart in the past had vanished into thin air. Her mind was filled with hatred for him after she woke up from her dream. But now that she thought about it, if she really hated him, why had she never thought of killing him? Was that really hate? Or was he deceiving himself to hide his desire and yearning for the dream? We're here, said the coachman. North Wangting patted her on the shoulder. Don't think so much, just be a good bride. Come, let's customize your phoenix robe. This was the most famous custom-made clothing shop in the imperial city. Many members of the royal family came here to have their clothes customized. If one didn't have a certain status and identity, they might not receive them. The north-gazing Pearl nodded. Soon after, they took their measurements and left. The boss of the custom-made clothing saw them off with a smile. Looking at their receding figures, a strange look flashed across his face. In the sixth prince's mansion, the royal tailor also came to take Su Yu's measurements and customize the groom's clothes. Su Yu was extremely helpless. He was grounded by Dongfang Xia and was not allowed to leave the palace. In fact, even if he was not grounded, with Dongfang Xiao's power, once he left, Dongfang Xia would immediately notice. But until now, Su Yu still couldn't figure out why Dongfang Xia wanted him to marry the north-gazing Pearl. Why was he willing to offend his eldest son in order to facilitate this marriage? He didn't think that Dongfang Xia was simply teasing him. This person was good at planning, and every move he made had a profound meaning. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lured the Corpse Clan, Dongfang Shenlei, and many other potential enemies to one place and annihilated them in one go. His seemingly meaningless actions must have some ulterior motive. After the tailor left, Su Yu simply trained on the spot. In the ruins of the Great Yu, he had obtained many good things. One was the evil dragon Bible, and the other was the dragon's blood. The body that was stolen by the sinful lady has been tempered by the divine blood of the world annihilation dragon and the epic-making dragon. It has also cultivated the evil dragon divine body to the divine body level. What a pity! However, this time I have obtained the evil dragon Bible, which is far more powerful than the evil dragon divine body. The dragon's blood is also the blood of the fire dragon of the four-crowned emperor. The quantity is far more than the dragon's blood tempered in the past. If I continue to train, the effect will be far better than before. Secondly, after absorbing the dragon's blood, the power of the royal power dragon sword could be further enhanced. With that in mind, Su Yu immediately entered a state of isolation. Under the state of time acceleration of 500 times, he took out 2 gourds of dragon's blood and drank it all in one gulp. The bitter and spicy feeling hit him like a flood, and then turned into a flame burning in his body. Even the current Su Yu felt waves of pain from it. This dragon's blood is quite fierce. I wonder if it originated from the fire dragon. Su Yu muttered to himself and began to train with his eyes closed. 3 days later, Su Yu had already spent more than 2 years. The dragon's blood in the 2 gourds had been completely tempered. His skin was fiery red and dragon scales were faintly visible under his skin, emitting bursts of heat. His eyes were engulfing and spitting flames. At first glance, it was somewhat similar to true Lord Fire Dragon's real dragon divine fire. He had seen the power of the real dragon divine fire with his own eyes. The body of the four-crowned emperor, evil dragon lord, had been incinerated by the divine fire. Su Yu was secretly surprised. He did not expect that tempered divine blood would bring about a faint wisp of real dragon divine fire. Although it was not as powerful as true Lord Fire Dragon, it could still easily burn a single-crowned emperor to death. Even a double-crowned emperor would lose a layer of skin in the face of this flame. Apart from that, his physical strength had also greatly increased. Compared to the past, his strength had increased tenfold, comparable to when he did not have the law of great strength. Combined with the law of great strength, he should be able to double his previous limit. The Tianyi Bao was pulled back 3 inches, and the power that erupted from it would definitely increase dramatically. Of course, the most important thing was the evil dragon Bible. After 2 years of training, he had barely reached the lower class of the first stage, Nirvana of the evil dragon. He could transform into an evil dragon and fight with his enemies. However, he would only know its specific power after some testing. He had wanted to continue training, but Princess Rukin and Emperor Wu Hen had come to visit. "Congratulations, brother. You have found a marriage," Princess Rukin said with a smile as soon as she saw him. Emperor Wu Hen could not stop smiling. "I really have to congratulate you. The north-facing pearl is a famous beauty of the empire. Many people are envious of her." Su Yu invited them in, closed the door gently, and said calmly, "You are not here to congratulate me, are you?" He sat down casually and said, "There is no need to hide our relationship. Just tell me what you have to say." Just when he was upset, the 2 women were being secretive and not as free and easy as they used to be. He was even more displeased. Princess Rukin stuck out her tongue apologetically and massaged his shoulders in an ingratiating manner. "Brother, don't be angry. We were just joking." Emperor Wu Hen also apologized. "We are treating you like an outsider. This time, we have indeed come to ask you something." They were nervous, but they did not know if they should ask. Glancing at them, Su Yu knew what they wanted to ask. He sighed and said, "There is no need to guess. Dongfang Xia knows everything. From the moment I, the 6th prince, appeared, he knew I was a fake because he already knew about the fall of the real 6th prince." All of a sudden, the 2 women's beautiful faces turned pale, and they were extremely shocked. Emperor Wu Hen's face was ashen, and he slumped weakly into the chair. "However, you do not have to worry too much. If Dongfang Xia wanted to punish me, would he have let me live until now? Would he have forced me to marry the north-facing pearl in the name of the 6th prince?" Su Yu tried to calm them down. He analyzed, "Although my identity is fake, not only did I not do anything to harm the empire, but I also saved the empire's fate. Dongfang Xia should be well aware of this, so he will not blame you. Hearing this, the two women thought about it carefully, and their heavy hearts eased. Sigh, we did not expect things to turn out this way. Now Mr. Su has suffered, and we have an engagement for no reason. Emperor Wu Hen sighed. Su Yu shook his head. It is not your fault. If you want to blame someone, blame it on me for thinking too simply of Dongfangxia. Brother, why don't you stay here? Princess Ru Chun squeezed his shoulders diligently and said with a smile, since father pretends not to know anything, let it go on like this. I quite like you, my brother. Su Yu rolled his eyes. Cut it out. How is my current situation any different from being imprisoned? Moreover, he frowned deeply. I still have to find someone. Princess Ru Chun patted her chest with her small hand. Don't worry. I will do what I promised you, and help you find those two friends. Now that she was the heir to the throne, she had 10 great feudal lands, and powerful officials from all over had come to visit her. It was not a big deal to ask them to help her keep an eye on 2 people. Don't go, brother, Princess Ru Chin said coquettishly. Su Yu patted her hand and sighed with a bitter smile. Do you think there is any hope for me to leave now? He could feel a gaze sweeping over from time to time, probing his movements. It was Dongfangxia, who was staring at him like he was a thief. He did not think that Dongfangxia would really see him as a son. Such an ambitious and ruthless person would never allow an existence that he could not control to remain by his side. He would definitely take action to get rid of the 6th prince, or use a reasonable method to remove him from the 6th prince's name, so that he would no longer be a threat. This was the question that had been on his mind for the past few days. What was Dongfangxia up to? Your Highness, the young princess of the North Gazing Pearl and the young prince of the North Gazing Pavilion are requesting an audience. Them. Su Yu sighed. Let them in.